the introduction of bullet time technology, creepy fantasies about high school girls, unsettling high societal sex parties, biblical frogs raining from the sky, seeing dead people, pretending to be someone you're not, suicidal virgins, another Stephen King prison film directed by Frank Darabont, David Lynch making a movie about a World War II veteran driving his tractor, the perfect depiction of the mundane nature of the office workplace, shitting your pants from fear of witches and stick figures in the woods, questioning the very nature of reality, all-time cinematic plot twists, movies about dick, religion, elections, and cider. There are no rules when it comes to this episode. Fucking A, it's time to party like it's 1999. I am your host, Andrew, and I welcome you back to the Revisionist Almanac, the show that gets into the time machine, takes a deep dive into past Academy Awards ceremonies, and determines what the voters that year got right, and more importantly, what they got wrong. This is the 4th episode of the season, and I am once again joined by 2 first-time guests who have dared to take the plunge into the dangerous waters of Revisionist Almanac prep. Up first, he's the host, the creator, and 1/3 of the voices you'll hear on the incredible show, the Neverending Watchlist, where you'll feel like you're pulled up at a bar stool at your favorite pub or favorite bar, chatting with buddies about movies. From all the way across the pond, please say hello to Damon Carter. Hey, Damon.
Thank you, Andrew. That introduction was magnificent. And can I just say as well, the opening, I think you've outdone yourself. That was incredibly put together. Well done.
Thank you. I totally botched the last one last month as you caught me on Friday morning. I pulled a rare editing fail.
I was the quality assurance guy, Seth. I sent him a message as I was listening. 20 seconds in, there seems to be a little cut that didn't quite work for me. And I straight away, Andrew's probably like, "Fuck you, man."
I hadn't even poured my morning coffee, and I'm already reading this text about what I'd done wrong. So thanks for keeping me humble.
Can I just say, Alex, who's on our co-host, he will empathise with your feeling there because he's constantly getting me moaning and complaining about why things aren't always perfect. So can I just say, this is amazing for me. It's my first guest spot on a podcast. I don't know why I've not been invited before. I am available. I can only assume people are so intimidated by me, they don't want to ask, but I am available for podcasts and supermarket openings and bar mitzvahs and anything else that they might need promoting. So yeah, go for it.
Seth, you look like you had something to say there before I introduce you.
Oh, well, I just like it when, the people at the top are held accountable. And I think it's time that someone lets Andrew know what a shoddy job he's been doing. So I think Damon is doing important work. And I would encourage everybody today, as you're listening, it's very simple. Open up a notes app. As you're listening, just put down some timestamps. And maybe if you haven't left a review for the show yet, it would be appropriate to put the timestamps of mistakes that Andrew has made in your review.
Turn it into TripAdvisor. Yeah, so it's like not a bad visit. Decor not too good. Yeah, cuts could work better. Yeah, sure. The intros not bad. Yep. That's the sort of thing we need, I think, feedback for Andrew. Yeah, he's so good. He needs to be taken down a peg or two.
I agree. That's actually what I'm here for. I'm actually here. I've been waiting a year to sabotage this show.
Well, let me introduce the man who's ready to sabotage everything over the next couple of hours. He's a podcast host himself. He's a pizzeria owner. He's a modern-day Renaissance man. He's one half of the delightfully fun Movie Friends podcast. Say hello to Long Island's own Seth Vargas. Seth, like you said, it's been, I feel like, a year in the making doing this thing. I'm so happy to finally be talking to you face to face.
Yes, absolutely. Andrew, contrary to what I just said prior, Andrew's a really great guy, and you've actually written some articles for the Movie Friends website. I have no idea how you haven't been a guest on the show quite yet. And yeah, I just looked back in my email. You sent an email in May of last year for this episode, and I'm pretty sure I responded to you then. Thank you. I will not look at this until a week before. And while that's not quite true, I will say I had a rush of panic maybe 30 minutes before this started, and I thought, oh God, I hope there was nothing really important in those documents he sent me.
Yeah, I am notorious for planning things way too far in advance, as you've just documented on the record here. I've already got next season and the year after planned out.
That's
God
great.
help me, but yeah, it's really only for my own mental health to do that. But
I agree. Yeah.
I'm so excited to have the two of you on. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. This is the first time this season I've had two white males on. I've been trying to add some diversity this year, but we're back to the basics on this one.
Yep.
We don't get enough airtime, damn it.
That's right. I'm 50%, so maybe next episode you'll get the full view. But yeah,
there we go. All right. Well, as a reminder, this show looks back on past Academy Award ceremonies with the luxury of hindsight to determine what should have won the Oscar for Best Picture, Best Director, and the 4 acting categories. Before we start things off, I hope you'll take time to rate and review the channel on whatever podcast streaming platform you're listening on, as well as finding and following the show on every social media platform using the handle Rev Almanac. All right, gentlemen, 1999. So for those who aren't familiar with that year, the Best Picture winner was American Beauty. Before we get into the 6 categories we're going to break down, let's take a quick moment. Let's look at the year as an overview. First and foremost, I want to address something Seth posted on Twitter a while back, and it's been bookmarked on my phone ever since. I think we got to get this out of the way right away. So Seth, you posted, and I quote, "I worked for an Oscar voter. Asked how they had time to watch all their screeners. They said they didn't. I said, how do you know what to vote for? They said they voted for whatever their friends worked on. The Oscars are a sham." And you continue on from there. Now, Seth, you got a ton of responses from online followers. Would you care to explore this a little bit more here? And this is, for the record, this is a big reason why I wanted you on this show and why this whole concept is what it is. And I want you to take the Oscars down a peg because I know you have a little bit of animosity towards award ceremonies. So elaborate a little bit on that tweet and that response and back and forth you had.
Sure. Oh, I have an incredible amount of animosity towards award shows, the Oscars in particular. If you look into the history of how they began, it's a total joke. I made that tweet and got a lot of angry, negative backlash for telling that story. True story, by the way. Unfortunately, it's a poorly worded grammatically tweet because of character limits, and I don't pay for Twitter, so I have to kind of make some sentences a little stunted. But Variety put out an article, several actually, right before the Oscars, where they interviewed anonymous Oscar voters who said exactly what I said. They don't have time to watch the movies. They don't watch movies that are longer, or they turn them off. My problem with the Oscars in particular is that to the common person on the street or in your workplace or in your family, the Oscars are important. They mean something, and the movies that are nominated and win are important films. That is not true. If you look at Oscars history, I mean, no slight against music from the heart and tumbleweeds, but if you look at Oscars history, especially Best Picture winners, it's almost a record of what isn't important. It's almost a record of the films that we forget and don't matter. However, if you are an Oscar winner, it means that your pay is going to get bumped up by at least another 0, right? And so, as long as the people who are voting for that pay increase are part of the voting body, it will never be fair and balanced. It just isn't. It's a popularity contest. It's a politics contest. I interviewed a director last year, a director from the Philippines, and he was in LA campaigning for his film. Now, we've all heard about Oscar campaigns, right? Well, how that actually works is you have to rent out a restaurant and you have to invite Oscar voters. You have to wine and dine them and spend money in order for them to pay attention to you, and you have to beg them to watch your movie and then vote for it. That is wrong, because that means that the same countries that can afford to do so will continue winning, and the Philippines will never win because they just don't have the money to spend millions and millions of dollars on Oscar campaign, award campaigns. It's not right. So yeah, I hate the Oscars, and And I'm glad that 1999 has such a, sore thumb of a Best Picture winner, where it's just so obviously not the best picture from that film. Now, if you guys feel that way, I apologize. and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but it's like, come on. So yeah.
Yeah, and I mean,
it was a fun 2 days where people were yelling at me and calling me a liar.
we're just in the wake of the most recent Oscars, which was less than a week ago from the time we're recording right now, and Anora was sort of celebrated in that moment for winning as this independent film, small budget, and then there's already been like hit pieces out on it over the last week and talk about how they've spent, I think, $12 million on the actual campaigning of the film, and like you effectively have to buy awards in this day and age. Like, that's just a real thing, regardless of the size of a film or its budget or anything like that. Damon, where do you stand on just the general apathy or indifference to Oscars? Where are you at it?
I think Seth's kind of put it perfectly there. I used to watch them a lot, and I used to kind of put a lot of value in them. And funnily enough, I think since listening to your podcast last year, I've got less and less interested in award ceremonies as a thing for. I'm more confident in my own movie knowledge to know what I think a good movie is, and I think it did start as far back as 1999, if I'm honest, and I'll come on to the year in a few questions' time, I think. But I do think the Oscars has really dropped some clangers over the years, and they're so far out of the zeitgeist of what cinema history is going to show was a great and important movie. 1999 is a huge example of this. So Seth's like perfectly talked about it. I just think, what are we giving awards for? Like, are we giving awards for who is the nicest person, or who is that's a good thing. I don't mind good people getting awards and recognition. That's a good thing in life. But are we just giving them to who is on a popularity contest? Are we doing it because we need people to be recognized for certain moments? Like there are many times in Oscar history where they've given Oscars to directors that should have had Oscars way before that, like Martin Scorsese. Like, there should have been many times where the work was awarded, but instead the person was, or the campaign, or the horrible producer that is bullying his way across Hollywood, who's now rotting in jail. Those sort of, who knows who I was talking about then, but like that is what I love your show, Andrew, and I think, I'm not trying to promote it while we're on it, but I think this is, getting people on, getting us to discuss it from a movie fan's point of view, what these films actually mean, is a great way to look back on these awards and kind of reevaluate them. I don't mind at the time, like people pushing their careers along, especially when it's an actor, an actress, a director I like. That's great, but does it show what the best is? And a subjective thing that is already clouded with, like you say, Seth, whining and dining and schmoozing and a popularity contest, it devalues the whole process. And if I'm honest, I'm going to be really slightly controversial now. If you weigh up the angle of now trying to desperately be seen to be diverse, that clouds the judgment of modern voting as well, and it's now become something crazy. I didn't watch the Oscars last week, but I don't think I will. I think I'll let the movie settle. I think that's the best thing. A lot of the time I'm way behind on all these movies. I didn't do Andrew's ballot because I haven't got around to watching the 2024 movies. I think it's sometimes good to let a year or two pass, let these films age like fine wine, and then come back to them and then go, right, what do we actually think now? Now a few years have passed. And here we are. And that's why Andrew's podcast was invented. So there you go.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say over the next couple hours, the three of us are not going to be in love with what actually won in 1999. I'm just gonna guess. That's just a guess I'm throwing out there based on what we've just talked about here. We'll find out. Let me quickly ask you both another question. This is the first time, maybe the last time, depending on how much fun or not you had doing this. What was your overall takeaway from this prep project? It's anytime I have somebody on, they're always like, I've never done anything of this nature where I've watched so many movies in a consecutive period of time, or it's a different type of prep that a lot of people aren't familiar with. Damon, how did you take the overall experience of watching all these films?
Was it must have been May for me then as well, when you got Yeah, I can't believe that. It's like, so I've been doing this for like 10 months. Do you know, I loved it. I loved it because the big headline for me was 1999 is a huge year for movies in my life, and it's a year I constantly talk about with people. When we're having arguments, like you say, kind of down the pub, the podcast style, we do chat about things like that, and 99 regularly comes up, and 2000 now that's clouded, I think, because I'm giving away my age here, but I'm going to wear it loud and proud. I was 18 in 1999, and I was down the cinema virtually every week watching. So a lot of these movies we're talking about today, not all of them, but a lot of these, I went to the cinema to watch them around about the release time, because I was just 18 and I was just, why not? Let's just, just go and watch virtually everything. It was great because there's a lot of classics in here that I hadn't watched for a while, because I feel like we're overwhelmed with content now. Like Seth, you said it before we started recording, like there's enough movies on my watch list to get through without revisiting stuff. But revisiting things after a long period of time, you do start reevaluating them again. So in terms of the prep, I watched some bits that I'd already seen 10, 15 times. But if I'm honest, there's a few films on here that I didn't need to rewatch. I know them almost off by heart. There's a good portion of movies I was unsure about, I needed to watch again. And there was some movies I hadn't seen before. So it was a brilliant opportunity for me to reevaluate the year, because Insight, we have a group chat. Andrew always sets up a group chat for the podcast. And I remember at the very start, I can't remember exactly what was said, but Seth said something really funny, but very cutting at the same time, which I appreciated. And at the same time, I was like, hey, he's coming after 1999. But I sensed Seth's tone on his messages. He likes the comedy. But at the same time, I was like, damn, is 99? Have I just because I was 18, do you know when there are seminal years of movies in your history, your own personal history, that you will look back on, I hope anyway, for everyone. I was lucky enough that 99 was my year, but you will look back on them with nostalgia factor. And I do wonder, does that cloud the judgment of what you're looking at now? Because invariably, I don't know how you guys feel, but a lot of my favorite movies are from when I was younger, which is upsetting, but also quite nice, because I'm like, when's the next, I don't want to say because I'm going to ruin my choices, but sure, when's the next such and such going to come out? And it was great to go back and I reminisce. What's great about films as well is you end up nostalgically thinking about where you were, what cinema you were at when you first watched these things, and just sharing these movies with your friends. So I loved it. They weren't all great, I can't argue. No year is perfect for film, but this was a year I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the preparation for this.
Seth, over to you. You had joked many times. I don't know how serious you were or not about you were going to cram at the end.
That's my expertise, is not knowing when I'm serious or not. Yeah.
You had sort of said you were going to, I think you posted something a week ago or so talking about you were going to watch 22 films this week or go crazy. I feel like you did an element of cramming this week. Was that how your prep experience was, or did you sprinkle some stuff in earlier, or did you just backload it all over the last month? How did you take prep?
Sure. So first, I just want to comment on something Damon said. I think that as people who talk about film, we want to be, an ideal is that we are impartial, right? But I think that it is special and great that we admit that there are movies that mean something to us because of what we were going through in our lives, and that it's okay to be individuals. It's not okay to be like, I hate Tom Cruise, so this movie sucks. But as we have people who read us and listen to us, we can be ourselves and we can say, I mean, when you said you were 18 in 1999, my first thought was, what a lucky duck, to be able to go and check all these things out in theaters. That's pretty amazing. I didn't have the same experience. I had kind of a bad, let's say 18 to 20 range for movies, but yeah, I was born in 88. So for me, it was more like 2005, 2007. Not the greatest time.
Yeah. There's a lot of crap those years.
Yeah, for sure. Lots of great stuff too. But as far as prep goes, no, I did not wait because I knew that I couldn't wait. You said, normally people don't do massive projects like this. in 2022, I made a challenge for myself to do 1,000 movies, 1,000 new to me feature-length narrative films. So I didn't count any shorts, any documentaries, anything like that. So that was a massive undertaking. And so this, in comparison, I was like, come on, man, I've got a year to do this. So I basically would just sprinkle in movies. For the show, I have to watch a lot of stuff. And so it just kind of, mostly what it did was it took over my decision making. So sometimes you have choice paralysis. It's like, oh, I have access to every movie on planet Earth. What do I watch? I guess I'm going to watch the menu go by as I scroll through it for an hour deciding. So this was much easier. I could pop on Letterboxd, go to the year 1999, sort it by what I hadn't seen and what was streaming. Much easier to find stuff to watch. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to come into this not just for the episode, because I really don't care about your listeners or you guys, but for myself, for my own personal enjoyment and, edification. I wanted to see the breadth of 1999 and not just focus on like the most popular or the ones that won Oscars or awards. So I was going into I think one is Hot Wax Bikini Bikers or something, and somebody was like, where did you find this movie? Yeah, exactly. Really low budget B movie stuff. And I wanted to kind of get an understanding of the year. I ended up watching 1999 now has the most movies that I've seen from any year out of all of film history now. I just finished my last one, so I totaled out at 140. Which isn't a lot overall, but it's a lot for 1 year. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that, it was a little project that I had over the months, and I would definitely recommend to anyone who's going to be on the show, just treat it like that. Don't try to cram it all, because you'll come up short and you'll regret it. Just watch 1 or 2 a week. You'll be fine.
That was my next question, was if you had any advice for a future guest who might be listening right now. You've effectively answered that question right there. Damon, is there any advice that you have for somebody who might be taking the plunge down the road?
Yeah, I echo Seth's thoughts there. Yeah, cramming's probably... I mean, I didn't cram, but I know what I'm like. And if I did cram, I just don't think I would have done a very good job of it. And I don't think I'd have taken the movies in the same way. I used to cram a lot of movies in general. I did 4 movies on last Saturday, and it took me back to a younger time. I just had the time somehow. I did just the way the day worked out. And I got to the end of the day and I was almost like sledgehammered. I just thought, I can't do this. Like, there's too many thoughts going on in my head to process all of the films. So I wouldn't cram watch. I wouldn't do that either, where you're cramming 4 or 5 in a day, like, let alone how many you watch over a week. I just think you need, sometimes with a movie, you need a bit of time to let it breathe. Just sleep on it maybe, and just the next morning have a think about it a bit more. And so I do that. I try and write my immediate notes on the movie, and I mean literally just a paragraph maybe, like just to kind of go, what was I thinking? Because invariably because we've been doing this, like say, since May, and as soon as we started doing it, I went, right, I'll just find what's about. And watching, I don't know, 4 Weddings and a Funeral, not 4 Weddings and a Funeral, that was the wrong year. I didn't watch it like that. Notting Hill, they're the same, interchangeable, doesn't matter. I remember just going, I'll watch these films. I don't need to worry about because I had plenty of time. So if you give yourself plenty of time, you'll be fine. I don't think you need to watch absolutely everything like that year. Andrew, with anyone that knows the show, you sent us a rewatch list. I won't lie, I watched pretty much all of it. There's 2 or 3 I didn't get round to. I don't think after having watched all those films, I needed to watch all of them, but I'm glad that I did, because it gives me a bit of a feel for the year. And if you can find any of your own that aren't on Andrew's list as well, I think that helps, because Andrew's got a comprehensive list, but it changes, and we discover films over time. We forget that there are little movies in different parts of the world that rarely see the light of day. So I think, like I said, I don't think you need to watch absolutely everything. I tell you, one thing I would say is, if you can, leave space to try and watch a few of the films a second time, just to see if you could just reevaluate your opinions and go back, because I don't know about you guys, a lot of times the first watch of any movie, and I tell you, we'll talk about one film in particular where the first watch, no, there's two films actually in this list. The first watch is completely different to the second watch, and all right, there's a reason for that, but I do also think without big revelations at the end of movies do need a second viewing, because once you know what's coming, you watch a movie in a different way with a different lens, and your brain tunes into a different part of that movie. Now, you can't watch every film more than once, but I do think if you get to the end of the list and you go, right, there's a few I'm not sure of, watch them again. Like, even if it's just another 4 or 5 of them, just to see, not if they're rubbish. If you think I might be onto something here, watch those ones again.
Yeah, that's exactly, I think I mentioned it even on last month's episode. That's the exact spot. I've sort of found the sweet spot for prep, because I've been forced to do this thing for 16 months now. And what I will do is I'm literally 5 months ahead on prep. So I just finished 2001 this week, which I won't record till like August at this point. And so what I do is I sort of let those 30, 40 movies just sit in my mind for a while. And I've sort of already worked out what I think I'm going to nominate and give wins to. And then when I get about a week or two out from the actual episode, I'll go back and watch 5 or 6 films and just see if I'm like firm in my conviction for what I think I'm going to fall into. So like that second watch really solidifies something for me, or it takes it out. And that was what I did over the last 2 weeks for 1999. Is I went back and I rewatched 5 or 6 very select things that I wanted to make sure I was comfortable with what I'm about to say here shortly. So that's
Andrew,
definitely the groove.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you have like long lists of notes and loads of like similar sort of thing I've done, where I've just written a few things down? Because like anything, you watch way more movies than I do, but there must be a lot of films that merge where you're like, who was the actress in that? You must come in and out of the memory banks of which films, especially when you're planning 3 or 4 months ahead. How do you manage that part of it?
Yeah, I have like I sort of have a Word document that has all of the rankings by category. So like I have who's number 3, number 10, etc. And then under each one I have a little tab for some little notes for what I think of that performance, and then just to sort of jog my memory, because like at a certain point when I'm looking at 60 names on a sheet for supporting actor, it's kind of hard to remember who was in what and where and what's going on and all that stuff. So that's I don't go crazy with my notes, because I just have too many films I'm watching at any given time, but I just try to have little select things. And quite frankly, this year was one where I had seen the majority of the stuff. I think there was maybe like 6 first-time watches in total for me. I was 14. I'm an 85 kid, so I was 14 in 1999, and I remember seeing a good chunk of these films in the theater as well. Like my dad took me to see The Matrix and all that stuff that I couldn't get into. So like this was very much a formative year for me as a young person as well, kind of like you were saying, Damon. All right, so let's talk about like overall takeaways from 99. Is there like a theme that you pulled out of the year after you watched all these films, or just your general feeling about the collection of them? Seth, is there anything that you took away from the totality of 1999?
Yeah, I have a list that I prepared, if you're ready.
Is this the list you teased?
This is the list that I teased. I promise I'll read it as fast as I possibly can. But if you know anything about how films are made, right? You know that a bunch of people didn't get together on January 1st and said, gee, what are we thinking about right now today? What are we thinking about in 1999? And what are we going to put out into the world to reflect this time? Absolutely not. Some of these films were probably being worked on since 1992. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a tricky thing when we're talking about a film year to not administer meaning where perhaps there isn't any. However, I do think that 1999 does have a lot of really great movies. And I think that one of the reasons why is this list that I prepared. So this is, now you could make this list for a bunch of years, I'm sure. And it would probably be close to as impressive, but there is something special about 1999, and that is the directors that put out material in 1999. So I've assembled not an exhaustive list, so I'm sorry if someone isn't on here, but this is a list of directors that put out either a short, a feature, or a documentary in the year 1999. Now listen to this and see if that's not a reason why this is a special year. So we've got Lily and Lana Wachowski, James Mangold, M. Night Shyamalan, Sam Mendes, Paul Thomas Anderson, Spike Jonze, Tim Burton, Takashi Miike, Pedro Almodovar, Claire Denis, David Lynch, Michael Mann, a little dude named Martin Scorsese, Jim Jarmusch, David Cronenberg, Milos Forman, Sofia Coppola, Kevin Smith, Lynn Ramsey, Chris Smith, Joel Schumacher, Isao Takahata, David Fincher, Abbas Kiarostami, Spike Lee, Oliver Stone, Harmony Korine, Takeshi Kitano, Steven Soderbergh, Wim Wenders, Frank Oz, Norman Jewison, Nicholas Winding Refn, Werner Herzog, Mike Lee, Greg Araki, Catherine Brelat, Sam Raimi, Nagisa Ashima, Ron Howard, Kiyoshi Kurosawa, George Lucas. George Lucas put out a movie in 1999.
I must have missed that.
Clint Eastwood, Neil Jordan, Ang Lee, Park Chan-wook, Luca Guadagnino, Sidney Pollack, Charles Burnett, one of the most important African-American directors in American history, Robert Altman, Wes Craven, Lloyd Kaufman, Rob Reiner, Albert Brooks, Errol Morris, Peter Greenaway, Barry Levinson, Chantal Ackerman, the director of the film that was just named the greatest film of all time, Lawrence Kasdan, Paul Schrader, Sidney Lumet, Martha Coolidge, Robert Townsend, Kelly Reichardt, Mike Mills, Jane Campion, Toby Hooper, Richard Attenborough, Steven Spielberg, this name I'm going to butcher, Apichatpong Patan Weerasethakul, name that we didn't know that much back in 99, but we do know very well now, except for me, Joan Micklin Silver, Alex Cox, Julie Dash, Peter Bogdanovich, and if that wasn't enough, a little dude named Stanley Kubrick.
I was waiting for the Kubrick to come in there.
Who's missing off that? Like
all of these directors from a generation previous, 60s, 70s, 80s, and then all the directors who we are still talking about today. Luca Guadagnino put out a movie in 1999. So, for that alone, 1999 is a very important historic year.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to top that one. That's an amazing... You need to take a breath there, Seth, because that was a huge list of names you just read off. Damon, what about you? Any 99 takeaways that you took from the year, the prep?
Seth's just blown me away with that list. The only one I can't think that's on Seth's list is Tarantino. Virtually everyone else I can think of, like, so I was going to say, Spielberg didn't. Yeah, in terms of key takeaways, I'd say Seth's right. A lot of these films, I took them and I've taken it as it's my year. These films came out. This is what defined it, because you've got the whole turnover. It's the end of the decade. It's not just the end of the decade. It's the end of the century. So we're seeing what's going on with that. What does it mean? What is the year 2000 going to mean? And to me, this was a redefining year for cinema in many ways, for innovation, for championing spirit, for a wave of exciting and up and coming directors. Like you say, Seth, also the well-established directors were doing stuff as well. But I do think there was some big younger names coming through that, like today, we consider the top dogs, like the Premier League. These are the guys that and girls, like everything. These are the ones that are redefining cinema. And yeah, it's just there's some real energy, I think, in a lot of the movies, but the flip side to that was the Academy was still reluctant to embrace those young voices, and they were still very reluctant to reward those young and vibrant filmmakers. Not always. I'm not going to sledgehammer them all. There was some acknowledgement of some of them. So, they didn't get it all wrong, but there was still too much of a reliance for me on old-fashioned storytelling, old-fashioned type movies that older voters clearly were more warming to. And that, to me, was just clear that the demographic of who the voters were was clear as day in the movie nominations. And yeah, all right, there was a few coming through, but a lot of them you just thought, after you've watched stuff, you thought, how has that got ahead of these 10, 15 films that I just, I couldn't get my head around. There are 6 movies that are on the IMDb top 250 list, which I had a little moment during the prep. I'm going to see how it stacks up. And to be fair, that's about average. And most years in the last 20 years or so ish have a range around about average of 6. So I'd say 99 for some reason it is up there, and some of these are right high up the list, really high. But funnily enough, some of these that are really high up the list barely got a mention, and that was my main theme. I think missed opportunities of the Academy, real big missed opportunities.
Yeah, that kind of falls in line with where I am. Where I'm so glad we're dissecting 99 because it is a seminal year in film history, and for I think a lot of us cinephiles of a certain era, like we all vividly remember a few select films from 1999 that mean a lot to us and our experience and like formed our opinion on film. And to Seth's point, you had this incredible collision of these legacy directors who had sort of built the groundwork of what these young people were coming in and doing. And 99 would just like everything came together to form this perfect cohesion of anything you could want from filmmaking happened in 1999. It's just a matter of you looking in the direction you want to go. But when you look at, if you go to the Wikipedia page for the 1999 Oscars and you look at the nominees, like to your point, Damon, you're like, what were they thinking at the time? And it's obvious, like you just look at the demographic of the voters and you can very clearly see what they were thinking. But I think we as a collective society were ready to move in a different direction. And also you just had my other takeaway from this year is you had this vivid memory of like a fear of technology and a fear of the Y2K movement and everything that was happening. And there were so many films that were questioning reality and existence and existentialism. And there were just a lot of things happening in 1999 that all sort of centered around that same feeling I think we had as a society. And it just sort of brought all that back to me when I was going back and dissecting a lot of these films and these filmmakers questioning very existence. It was just, that was my big takeaway, was all these filmmakers were questioning their existence, humanity's existence, where we were going to go in the new millennium. That was just very front and center for all these people. Let's talk, though, we'll get to all the good stuff here shortly, but let's just talk about some of the bad stuff really quickly and we'll get it out of the way, and then we won't have to talk about the bad movies anymore. I'm making a real point in 2025. This is my positivity era. I'm trying not to yuck too much yum from people. I know everyone has movies that mean a lot to them, but I think there are objectively a few movies in 1999 that didn't land with me, and I'm sure you two both probably feel the same. Damon, I'm going to go to you first. Are there a select handful of movies that you did not enjoy revisiting or watching for the first time for this prep?
Yeah, I've got a few. I just don't want to take up all your time. We've got to talk about the good stuff, but right, The End of the Affair is a piece of shit. Like, and I mean this with like it's one of the most overrated English romance stories I've ever watched in my life. It's melodramatic, it's cliched, it's style over substance. It dresses up a terrible romance story. I say romance about an affair, extramarital. It's just everything about it annoys me. It's like it's an English film that doesn't look like any version of England I've ever been in. Like it looks pretty. England isn't pretty. This is the biggest myth. We need to stop this right now. England's not pretty, okay? It's desolate. It's like just rabid people just everywhere. It's like Children of Men. Like it doesn't look like anything.
Okay.
All right, maybe I'm getting carried away. But it certainly doesn't look beautiful, rain, everyone looking at each other longingly. Julianne Moore, I love Julianne Moore. She's one of the greatest actresses that has ever done anything. The End of the Affair is not a high point for her. I'm sorry. Like I think it's. I just really and it's Neil Jordan as well, wasn't it? The End of the Affair. Like I just think, Christ, like this is. I really got annoyed watching it, and my wife was like, "You look angry." I was like, "This is just crap." And this was back in the summer last year, and it still annoys me now. So that's The End of the Affair. I'm just going to do two more, and then let Seth and yourself, Andrew. Music of the Heart. How was this directed by Wes Craven? I stunned. I was absolutely stunned. It's a Hallmark drama that looks like an advert for school funding with Meryl Streep. It's like an advert that's just got out of hand, and they just turned it into a film. And Wes Craven directed this. This is his worst horror movie. I'm certain of that. Like, it's just horrendous. And the third one, we did a podcast on it, and Cameron won't be happy about this because we did a deep dive in it. Existenz is one of the most overrated movies I've ever seen, and I'm a David Cronenberg fan. I think there is nothing of substance in that film whatsoever. It's all it's tell, not show. It's writing stuff on chalkboards. It's using Willem Dafoe for nothing. It's Jude Law just acting terribly. It lacks any chemistry. It lacks any sense. The fact that they tried to piggyback on the Matrix's success by saying, you'd see it on some of the quote marks next to the movies, next to the movie would be like, it was something like, it was like the Matrix, or it was, I can't remember what it was exactly, but I just thought, how dare you get anywhere near. I'm giving away some of my positivity later on, but End of the Affair, Existenz, Music of the Heart, those are films that annoyed me. I just thought, these are bad movies. And I don't necessarily think you guys would all agree, but for me, I really didn't like them. There's another film that I was almost on the cusp of that I think you're positive on, Andrew, but I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's as good as what people now think it is after it's been reevaluated. Taking a breath.
So I have been intentionally not listening to your episode of Existenz because I didn't want to get any idea of where you stood on it. I'm so happy tomorrow it's on the queue. It's going up so I can listen to you just lambast it.
Yeah, I've got my points in there. So I off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly what they were, but a lot of it is just there's no substance to that movie. And Cronenberg, this is what I can't understand. David Cronenberg, Neil Jordan, and Wes Craven made 3 of the movies I cannot stand. Like, I just couldn't have them. I'm sorry.
All right, well, let's see if Seth is in line with any of those, or if he has some other films that rubbed him the wrong way. Where are you at on bad movies, Seth?
Sure. So I also put together 3, but I will say End of the Affair was my number 5 of films that I just really did not enjoy. The first line of my review says, if you had told me that in a film with Ralph Fiennes and Julianne Moore, I would come away from it most impressed with Stephen Rea, I don't know how to say his name, I wouldn't believe it. He's phenomenal in that movie. I think he gives an incredible supporting actor performance in that. But that movie was not good. It was such a bummer. Yeah. My first one is extremely controversial. I've caught flack for it many, many times, and I just want to say I can appreciate the importance of it. I was a child when this came out. I was there for the rumors. I was there in the bedrooms where it was spoken about in hushed, scared tones. Nobody knew what was real and what was not, but it is a movie that I hate to watch. Viscerally, I get angry, and that is the Blair Witch Project. I despise this film. I hate found footage films. Love horror movies. Found footage, though, oftentimes just ends up, because it's found footage and you're not bouncing around locations and all of the tools that we have in a narrative film, it often boils down to people just arguing with each other. And there is probably no worse example of that than the Blair Witch Project. I hate this movie. Again, I love indie film. I love low budget. I love zero budget. I love all that stuff. Never want to watch this movie again for the rest of my life. But hey, they made a bunch of money. Good for them. You know what I mean? My second one, which I dislike equally, I watched the animated version of The King and I from 1999. It's horrible, really bad, very bad animation. And not to put one person on blast, but I'm just going to. Daryl Hammond does maybe the most racist Asian caricature ever committed to film, on par with Breakfast at Tiffany's. Seriously, it is that bad.
What about Fisher Stevens and Short Circuit? Is it on? Is worse than that?
Nah, Fisher Stevens. It's bad. It's really bad. Don't watch this movie. If you like The King and I, there's other versions that you can watch. This is fair. And the animation, that's the real unforgivable part. Not the racism, but the animation. And then one that I just watched recently, and I was really bummed out about. As I mentioned, I love horror. I love horror comedy, and this was one that I had kind of just never gotten around to, and I thought this was a good opportunity to do so. That's Idle Hands, starring Devon Sawa. Wowie, wow, wow, wow. I described it as like someone wearing pants that are 5 sizes too large for them. It's just so empty. You can see the spirit and like the drive behind it, where had it been a lower budget, shorter film, not quite so large. It's like when you grow up and you love a punk band, right? And then you go and see them in a much larger venue than you're used to seeing them in. You're like, oh, this isn't a stage show. So when we go to an arena, this kind of sucks now, you know? That's what Idle Hands is. So should have been a lot better. Not good at all. So yeah, that's probably my bottom 3.
14-year-old me is very mad at you, Seth, because Idle Hands was definitely one of my favorite movies as a 14-year-old, I think.
That's okay. Hey, that's okay.
I did not rewatch Idle Hands for this prep because I've seen it many times at this point. And it is what it is. You know, it's for a 14-year-old. It's been a minute since I've dusted off the elevated Hallmark films, which is a term coined by Britt, a past guest of the show. And it's effectively those movies that are just trying too hard to be Oscars baity, and they are pushing too many emotional buttons, and they're just not getting there, but they've got like usually good actors in them and good writers behind them, and so they're slightly elevated from just a normal Hallmark movie. The End of the Affair is the very top of that list. That movie is worst movie of 99. You'd be hard pressed to find a movie worse than The End of the Affair. Of all of the movies in Letterboxd's 99 section, it's awful. It's an awful movie.
I'm so glad you both said that, because I didn't look at what the reception was, so I was like, am I really off base here? Because it felt like it was really well made, but it annoyed me so much. I hated it. It was just, I'm glad you guys have both said you didn't like it.
Every scene I was like, what is Julianne doing? What is Rafe doing? Like, why did they sign up to this thing? It made no sense to me. I did not get any of that movie. The second one is, unfortunately, sorry to take a shot at Meryl, but Music of the Heart is a bad movie. I forgot that Wes Craven was the director on that thing. Like, I had to like kind of double take when I was like, Wes Craven? That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It does feel like an after-school special. I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there, Damon. And then The Cider House Rules is just not really a movie for me. I think it's a perfectly acceptable movie. It's like a solid 6. It's just not my speed. I can't say a whole lot of nice things about The Cider House Rules other than it just is. And then probably the one that disappointed me the most, I've gone back to this movie 3 or 4 times. I keep wanting to find my way into it. I have just seen Mike Leigh's Hard Truths over the last like month, which is a phenomenal film. Marianne Jean-Baptiste is brilliant in it. I'm a big fan of Mike Leigh as a director, but Topsy Turvy, I don't fully get. Like, it's just too weird and too, I don't know. It's not me. It's not an Andrew movie. And one of these days I'm hoping I will be a Topsy Turvy guy. I kind of feel like Seth. I feel like that's maybe more of a your movie. I don't know.
No.
Okay.
I adore Mike Leigh. I think Mike Leigh is incredible at making movies that make me feel like jumping in front of a lorry or a trolley, as perhaps a character in his films would say. Topsy Turvy, I think, is really well made. There's some great camera work when they're on stage, and I kind of just came to being like, I just kind of want them to film the stage stuff. Like, I want to watch that. That stuff is cool and exciting. But it was not one that I think I would echo what you said. It was mostly like disappointing. Where I was like, oh yeah, Mike Leigh. Heck yeah, Mike Leigh. Timothy Spall. Love Timothy Spall. And then I was like, Timothy Spall? What are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, there's 5 or 6 Mike Leigh movies I would go to any day over Topsy Turvy. Damon, Mike Leigh, he's a UK guy. Are you a Mike Leigh guy?
I met him once.
Oh.
Yeah, I was at a Cheltenham scriptwriting festival years ago. Like, I was doing my master's in scriptwriting, and we got a chance to go to this scriptwriting thing. And Riz Ahmed was there. This was before he was big as well. And then Mike Leigh came out. Now, Mike Leigh, as you know, I'll try not to make this anecdote too long, Andrew, for the length of your episode. He's not a big script guy. Like he's very much we will block a scene and we will create the environment as we're going along, and that creates some fantastic stuff. I don't know if I'm a huge Mike Leigh fan in general. I appreciate his work, but I don't think a lot of his stuff gets to the top of my list. But regardless of that, yeah, so he was at the scriptwriting festival, and there was a kind of an auditorium, and it was weird because it was like, well, you know, this is a scriptwriting festival. You block scenes. You don't really write scripts. Why are you here, more or less? Like, and someone asked him a question that was sort of like that, but it was less blunt than I just put it, and was relevant. And he shut her down, like really, really, like straight away. Like, and everyone was kind of laughing at this person that said the question. I felt bad for them. Later on, we get the opportunity to do like a round table sit with him, and literally, like, you know, just like a small table, and I'm sat on the same table as Mike Leigh, and I'm like, this is crazy. But he like you say, he's a bit aloof about the process of filmmaking, and I don't know, he didn't seem that in love with movies, and maybe that's through years of jaded hurdles to try and get his work done. So I can kind of appreciate that, and you know, a lot of his stuff's really low budget. I know Topsy Turvy managed to bag quite a few good, like, really decent actors in it. I've seen Topsy Turvy years ago and never felt the need to watch it again. This is one of those where I don't think there was anything there for me. Even if I know if there was a smidgen of something, there was nothing when I watched it the first time. And I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because I wasn't that keen. So it wasn't really an anecdote, but I met Mike Leigh once. I just found him as a filmmaker. He didn't seem to have a lot of passion for the process of making movies, and maybe it's because, you know, the process of it is really horrible and tough. So, you know, I empathize with him.
Yeah, whenever I think about Mike Leigh, I always think about the stories around the making of Meantime, which is one of his much earlier films. And I remember all of the actors talking about just like, it was a pretty arduous process, because you're just coming in day after day trying to like find this character, and you effectively have nothing on the page to work off of, and you're just sort of like free-forming it. It's a really, I can appreciate Mike Leigh's approach to filmmaking being different and putting his own spin on it, but Topsy Turvy is just not that's not the Mike Leigh movie for me. So
yeah,
that's the end of the Topsy Turvy discussion for this episode, I think. All right, well, you guys ready to get to the categories?
Yep, let's do it.
Yeah.
All right, so before we jump in, it's worth mentioning, if Damon, Seth, and I agree with any of the actual Oscars, we're going to skip the process, and we're going to give that an automatic entry if we agree with the winner of any of the categories. I don't think that's going to happen, but we'll find out. So we're going to list off what was nominated and won in each category. We're going to wipe the slate clean. We're going to make our own winners and our own selections. Let's get over to Best Supporting Actress. All right. So the actual nominees in 1999 for Supporting Actress were Catherine Keener for Being John Malkovich, Chloe Sevigny for Boys Don't Cry, Toni Collette for The Sixth Sense, Samantha Morton for Sweet and Lowdown, and taking the top honor on that night was Angelina Jolie for her star turn in Girl Interrupted. Angelina Jolie's win meant she and her dad, Jon Voight, became the second father-daughter Oscar acting winners. Voight won in 1978 for Coming Home. Okay, Damon, I'm confident that we can go to you first on this one and lead us off. Before you get into your 5 nominees and your winner, why don't you give us your honorable mentions first and then jump into your selections?
Can I don't know, are we going to do as well where we talk about maybe ones that are a bit overrated, or should I do that later?
Oh, sure. No. This is your spot to just air out all your grievances. I'm
not trying to be controversial here, but Angelina Jolie would get nowhere near my top 5. I think it's an over-the-top performance. I think it lacks depth. I think this was a performance where we've got an up-and-coming youngster that just so happens to be daughter of one of the most famous people in Hollywood, and she was pushed at the right age. I know that's a massively controversial thing to say, and it didn't hurt her career one jot, did it? You know, she went off and became Angelina Jolie, who is a great actress. But Girl Interrupted, for me, melodramatic performance, I didn't go for it whatsoever, and I don't think the film's half as good as what it thinks it is. So that's my first shot fired.
You're setting the tempo right away. Hot Take Central.
Yeah, that was the one thing on this category I just didn't go for. In terms of honorable mentions, though, Catherine Keener and being John Malkovich, I think didn't get my top 5, but definitely up there. I like her work. I like what she's done in her career. And it's only in the last few years I've really appreciated what she's been doing. I think Kimberly J. Brown in Tumbleweeds, I think she, again, I'll tell you what I did find in this category, and this is probably the sort of sign of the times, is I don't think there was a lot of great parts being given out to women, and this is a constant problem. So I felt there was a bit of a struggle, and I think the bar's got to be pretty higher than just being the foil to a male character. They need to stand on their, you know what I mean, on their own terms. It needs to be bigger than that, and that's not their fault because the parts they're being given aren't always the best. But there's still some in there. Sorry, I'm going off on one there. I go over two honourable mentions, and the film's going to come up a lot, I think, in discussion, but I'm going to go for Julianne Moore in Magnolia. I shots fired at her earlier. I'm going to bring it back now. I thought she was fantastic in Magnolia. I really do. I think her performance is, it's crazy. I think it's of someone that's really struggling with everything that's going on and also trying to manage her own brain in terms of where she's become in her life and what the things she's done mean, which kind of goes through the theme of the film. And also the same movie, Melora Walters for Magnolia, I don't think she gets the credit. It's a small part, but it's a huge and powerful performance. Every time she's on screen, she's heartbroken and she is devastated, and I don't think it's got anywhere near the amount of love I think it should have done. I think she was fantastic. So those are my honourable mentions. Shall I give you my 5?
Yes, please do.
All right, so starting, I won't go the winner, I'll give it at the end. So Sissy Spacek for The Straight Story, a very small role, but I think she was really important in that film. Chloe Sevigny in Boys Don't Cry, I'm keeping on brand here. Samantha Morton, Sweet and Lowdown. Now, this is the one that I might get a bit of flack for. Joan Cusack in Toy Story 2. Is my very close to being nominated for the actual one, but the award I would give it to is Toni Collette in The Sixth Sense.
Is there anything specific about Collette in that film that put her above the other 4? What does it about Collette in that movie for you?
Firstly, I think when I watched the film, I went to the cinema to watch that, and I double taked because I don't think I'd watched Muriel's Wedding too long before that, maybe a year or two, and I was is that the same? And I think initially when you do that, you do start noticing how good an actor or actress they are, because you start thinking, oh, okay, the choices they were making in Muriel's Wedding were very much choices, not, what became. In The Sixth Sense, she has to be the character that is trying to look into the world of her child in a certain way, and she's very much not able to access his world, and you need that performance to be really on point, and you need the emotion and the distress and the frustration and the heart of a mother going through what can only be described as one of the worst nightmares you can imagine for being a parent. And she displays it so well. She's a desperate mother. She's frightened. She doesn't know her son's problems. She doesn't know how to get the help she needs. She's so frustrated and she feels like an outsider. And I think she displays all of that. And then obviously you have that amazing moment in the car. The probably one of the most famous scenes in the whole film is when her and Haley Joel Osment's character, Cole, is it Cole? Mm-hmm. Is that his name? I forget. Or is that Bruce Willis? I forget the name of the character. It might be Cole. And they're talking, and he's talking about her mother, his grandmother, and the emotion from that scene. Every time I watch it, Toni Collette never fails to draw me in, and just I think I preface this with, this was the perfect movie, and I would almost say a showreel before someone said, I think she'd be really good for Hereditary. And yeah, Toni Collette, I just think she's amazing. She needs all the love. She's one of the finest actresses ever, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's been almost a year now since I did 1994 last summer. I watched 100 movies for prep for that one, and I'm still sort of embarrassed by myself that I have not gotten to Muriel's Wedding. It's a film. I've never seen that film before. It's been sitting on my Prime watch list, and I just haven't gotten to it.
It's fun. You'll enjoy it. It's not a slog, and because it's Toni Collette, I don't have any doubt that you'll enjoy parts of it.
I'm eager to get to it. It's just one of those things where just like life moves too fast. There's too many movies coming up, and I haven't gotten to it. Love Toni Collette. Great pick. I won't say too much. She might come up for me a little bit more. But let's go over to Seth now. Seth, give us some honorable mentions. Give us some people you think are overrated. Hit us with your nominees, your winner. Give us everything.
Sure. So I don't know that I have an overrated for this category. This was actually kind of the hardest category for me to pick. And I want to echo what Damon said. It was hard out of 140 movies that I've seen to find roles where, again, it wasn't just a lady playing off of, and I know that this is supporting, so that's kind of what it is, but all of the other categories were kind of easy to pick. This one was really, really, really difficult. So I don't know that I have any that I would say I would go as far as overrated. I guess what I would say is, if we're talking about 1999 for Samantha Morton, I would not put Sweet and Low down. There's another movie that I would, but it wouldn't be that one. Sweet and Low Down was fine. It had a few really, really great moments, and then it had a whole lot of noodling, which, you know, whatever. Not my favorite. For honorable mentions, I would say Courtney Love, Man on the Moon. I always forget that she doesn't appear in that movie until like almost an hour in, because I love her in that. I don't necessarily love Courtney Love as an actress either, so that I enjoy her a lot here, I think, is a testament to her performance. Jessica Campbell in Election. I thought Jessica Campbell was maybe doing more interesting work than I can't remember her name right now.
Reese
Witherspoon. Yeah. Reese is doing a full-on character in an election, and not necessarily one that I fully enjoy, which might be a movie sin to say, but oh well. I love Reese every other time. So, and then I would also say Catherine Keener and being John Malkovich. Yeah, she's really great in that. So for my nominees for supporting actress. So so you don't have to keep this in. Mm-hmm. How should I do this? Should I give my pick last, or I give them all and then I tell you which one is my pick?
It's however you want to go about it. I've had people who give me 5-1. I always go about it alphabetically by the film they're in. It's whatever,
wow,
it's whatever works for you.
Okay, I think I'm gonna say okay. So then, as far as my nominations for supporting actress, I would say Tilda Swinton in The War Zone, directed by Tim Roth. Crazy. Maybe the thing that I'm most grateful for doing this year is that I watched this film. Never heard of it before. Incredible movie. Very hard. Very, very hard to watch, but really great. And Tilda Swinton is great in it. Then I would say Erykah Badu in The Cider House Rules. I was with you, Andrew. Did not care for the film overall. I did like the part of the movie where they go to the drive-in and he's like, "Yeah, I love movies. I've only ever seen one." That's pretty great.
Was it King Kong?
King Kong, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, I thought that she did a really great job in Cider House Rules. Chloe Sevigny, Boys Don't Cry. Really good. I was very tempted to put her in this for Julian Donkey Boy rather than Boys Don't Cry, but I would consider that more of the lead actress than supporting actress. That's kind of the only reason she wasn't for that. But I think that's probably a better performance out of the two. That was another cool thing about really digging into the years, seeing how many people had dual roles, one that would be really not that great, and then one that was really, really great. Like we've already talked about with Julianne Moore. It's like you have her in Magnolia, and then you have her in The End of the Affair, and it's like
ends of the spectrum.
Julian, what are you doing? Very, very different. Sissy Spacek for The Straight Story just breaks my heart every time. I think it's incredible. I think the fact that Sissy Spacek continued acting is just a gift to mankind. Toni Collette in The Sixth Sense, for all the reasons that Damon already said. It's incredible. talking about, movies that had an impact on you at a young age. Watching The Sixth Sense when I was, I don't know, 12 or something scared me for the rest of my life. And all the performances had a big impact on me, except for Bruce Willis, who I think is kind of dead throughout that movie, if you know what I mean.
But
That's a good point, actually, Andrew. There's a few films in here where spoilers. We've got to tread carefully around, and Seth expertly just did that. Unless anyone can figure out what's going on.
Yeah,
maybe. So yeah, how do we? We've got to navigate. When we come to, there's another film we're going to come to later. Like, we've got to be careful.
I usually don't spoil things personally, but if you want to drop a spoiler, you're welcome to. I usually just assume that there are people who have probably not seen the largest film we'll talk about, and I just try to keep it vague.
Yeah, just watch the counter and keep your spoiler within 15 seconds. So then you say, okay, ready? Hit the fast forward button now. And then you come out on the other side.
That's
and we all go,
good shout. Very good shout.
Okay. But my winner, not nominated, but the movie was nominated for a different role in this category. That would be Brittany Murphy in Girl Interrupted. She has a much, much smaller role than Angelina Jolie. I liked Angelina Jolie in this movie. I think that when you compare this performance to a lot of her other roles, she's so free. It is over the top. I don't know how to feel about it, morally, in terms of depictions of mania, but it's a movie, whatever. But it's Brittany Murphy in this film that really, really stuck with me. I think she does more with less time than the two lead actresses do in the entire movie. So I would, hands down, give it to Brittany Murphy in Girl Interrupted.
All right, now what I love about having you on, Seth, is I thought you were going to add a little bit of chaos to this, and you already have. You've given me 6 people as nominations, which is perfectly fine.
Oh, did I?
Which is that is totally okay. You got Swinton.
Oh, I did. Yeah. Oops.
That is okay. So you're gonna have a 6-category nominee pool in this one, but
all right.
hey,
I'll amend for the next 5.
You're here to take the Oscars down any way you can.
Yeah, I'm not an Oscars person, so all of this is I'm like, oh, please don't go to me first.
No, Brittany Murphy is incredible in Girl Interrupted. That was one of the big takeaways for me going back to that one. Is like I remember watching it as a kid, and Angelina stood out. And going back, I was like, wow, Brittany Murphy was really talented as an actress, and it's a shame that she didn't really have the time in her career.
Yeah,
from her
gone way too
passing.
soon.
Yeah. All right, well, let's get over to mine. Then we'll see where we stand with everything. So I'm not going to call out any overrateds. I think all of the women did really well in this category, even though to both of your points, this is just something that comes up time and time again every time I do a year in this like 90s era where it just, these women aren't getting the material necessary. And it's so refreshing now in 2025. Women are really getting the full spectrum of roles that are female forward, and they're not just like taking a backseat to a male figure. And we've come a long way. We still have ways to go, as is always going to be the case, but we've come a long way, and it's always worth remembering when I go back to the 90s, or God, I was just in the 30s looking at things. So like, it's nice to see the progression of film. I am happy with the 5 I have, though. Before I get to those, my few quick honorable mentions. Carrie-Anne Moss in The Matrix. Action movies are never going to get a lot of love. Maybe some people think Carrie-Anne Moss is a lead in that, and maybe you guys will mention her in the lead category. I think she's very much supporting to Keanu in that film. And then the other one for me is Melora Walters in Magnolia. There was a really strong chance I was just going to nominate every single actor from Magnolia because it's such a big ensemble film, and that may come up in supporting actor because there's just a ton of guys in that movie. But you could pull out any of the actors in Magnolia and put them into one of the 2 categories on the supporting side, and they'd be deserving in there. But I've got somebody else I'm going to come to in Magnolia in a minute. But Melora Walters deserves credit. Another really good actress that I just don't feel like I've seen enough over time. She just hasn't really gotten a lot of work, or at least like work that I've had the chance to come in contact with, because she's really great in this film. All right, so here are my 5 nominees. Again, alphabetical order by the film. First up, I've got Catherine Keener being John Malkovich. I'm a big Catherine Keener fan in all of her work. She's tremendous in John Malkovich. Maybe my favorite part of that whole film, if I'm being completely honest. I just love what she does there. Second up, I've got Helena Bonham Carter in Fight Club. I'm obviously a huge Fight Club fan for anybody who knows me. I think Helena Bonham Carter is a terrific actress, and she does a ton of work in that movie to carry that movie in a lot of ways. Third nominee is going to go to Angelina Jolie in Girl Interrupted. I'm a lot higher on it than Damon was, who's giving me the thumbs down for people listening right now. I think Angelina Jolie's a really, really talented actress. I think this nomination was deserving. I'm not going to give her my win, but I do have her in my 5. Fourth nominee is going to go to Julianne Moore in Magnolia. If I'm selecting one female actor from Magnolia, it's definitely Julianne Moore, who you can make a case is in the conversation for best actresses of all time, in my opinion. I think she's just, anytime she does a movie, she elevates it. And then fifth and final nominee, I'm right there with the two of you on Toni Collette in The Sixth Sense. You can't say enough great things about Toni Collette as an actress, and especially in that film. I'd be fine with any of the 5 winning it, but it came down to 2 for me. It came down to Collette and Bonham Carter. Now, I have watched The Sixth Sense at least 5 times in the last month because I'm doing another podcast, a guest spot here in a couple of weeks, specifically talking about Toni Collette's character in The Sixth Sense. So I've been watching that movie on a very micro level, and as much as I want to give the win to Toni Collette, I'm not going to do it because, unfortunately, watching it so closely, her screen time is very, very minimal. Her impact on the film is huge, obviously. That one scene in specific in the car is an all-timer scene for me, but she's just not in the whole film enough compared to the woman I'm going to give the win to, and that's Helena Bonham Carter. Helena Bonham Carter won our 2010 episode, the revised Oscar. She won for The King's Speech. That wasn't my personal pick, but she won the online poll. I think she's very good in The King's Speech. I think she's significantly better in Fight Club. It's also a role that I feel like at the time was significantly different than anything she had done up until that point. And obviously now she's married to Tim Burton and she's done a lot more of the quirky, zany characters. But like, I feel like Fight Club started the trajectory for her to take on some of those crazy roles. And what impresses me so much about Helena Bonham Carter in Fight Club is that movie is so male-centric. It's so male-oriented. And people might take exception to this, but I think that if not for her character, that movie would go off the rails in the worst possible way. I think she's the heart of that film. She's the center of it. I think it's what drives the story. And at the end, the redemption story of the main character, without spoiling anything, I think is driven by the choice that he's given through Helena Bonham Carter's character. I just think she carries a lot of weight in that film, and I want to show her some love. As much as Brad Pitt and Ed Norton and David Fincher get credit for Fight Club, Helena Bonham Carter just works a lot of magic in that movie for me, and she makes me really happy. And she says some vulgar, crazy stuff in that movie, which I love too. Like, she's just not afraid to be like a tough, hard as nails woman in that film. So that's going to be my win, Helena Bonham Carter for Fight Club.
Andrew, can I just ask, why do you think she didn't get the awards love that maybe she should have done?
For this particular film or just in general?
Just for this film. Because I agree with everything you've just said regarding how her strength, I'll spoiler, I may have put her in a different category. But yeah, I think without her character, I've thought about this a lot, the whole film crumbles.
Yeah, I think it really just boils down to just how polarizing and how divisive that film was at the time. And I mean, it still kind of continues to be a very polarizing film for who has sort of claimed that movie and what people get out of the messaging of that film. And there's a lot that we can unpack in that. We might do some more of that in later categories potentially. But I just think that movie was way too outside the box and way too nihilistic and violent. And like, the Oscars voters at that time, a bunch of probably old, stodgy white guys, just all they saw was the fights and the blood and the violence and the language, and it probably just didn't move them at all. That's kind of where I think she missed out. Okay, so we've got 4 women that are going to come to the table for this category when we get to the online vote. You can go with Damon. He's got Toni Collette in The Sixth Sense. You can go with Seth, who's got Brittany Murphy in Girl Interrupted. You can go with my pick. I've got Helena Bonham Carter in Fight Club. And then you've got the Academy's pick, Angelina Jolie in Girl Interrupted. And also, really quickly, before we get to the next category, I don't know if either of you guys did this. I do this every time I do an episode. I'll go on YouTube and I'll pull up all of the acceptance speeches for all these winners because I want to kind of like immerse myself back in that world. The thing that stood out for me for the acceptance speech is it's before Angelina even got to the stage. James Coburn presented the award for he had won supporting actor in 1998 for Affliction, and he got up there and was just talking about how excited he was to give the award to a sexy young lady. Or it was really gross and weird and cringy, and it was just like a sign of how different and chauvinistic the time was in 1999. But I was like, what is happening with this old James Coburn on stage, just like excited to hand one of these young, sexy women, as he described it. It was wild. It was, and that's not the only crazy thing that happened on the stage we'll get to later. But
wow.
Yeah, it was gross. It was gross stuff. Go back and check it out on YouTube if you want to.
All right. Well, now that you said that, I need to amend what I was going to say when I hand out my Best Actor award.
Okay.
Andrew, can I just cut in really quickly? I think I messed up when I was doing my nominations in terms of I didn't really talk quickly. I won't talk about all of them. Just one I didn't mention. I'm curious on your takes. I put Joan Cusack for Toy Story 2, obviously the role of Jessie. And obviously it's a voice performance. Now, you don't get a lot of voice performances, whatever, like kind of given the credibility they deserve. I thought about this one a lot, and I feel like, and obviously she didn't get my nomination, but I thought you could feel the energy that she was putting into that performance. You could just imagine her dancing around the sound studio. You could imagine her like just doing all of the actions. And I know Pixar did a lot of like, they will map out of what the actors will do and try and kind of replicate that with the animation. And I just felt it needed to be recognized. I love Toy Story movies, and that was a real moment because she had a real heartfelt moment as well in the movie. And I just thought that might be my one. There's another one coming later, crazy pick. But I thought, I don't know if you guys were like, that's a bit out there, giving it to a voice performance. I know it's happened before, Andrew, on a previous show, but I didn't know if did that take you back a little bit, Joan Cusack, even just being recognized like that?
So I want to get Seth's opinion on this as well, but I'll quickly throw in my op-ed while I have the time here. I have had listeners, I have had past guests, I have had feedback from people who aren't huge fans of nominations of animation voice acting work. I am very much on the opposite side of that, and I think this show is a safe space for people to nominate things like that, or nominate a goat from a film if you want to go in that direction, as past guests have done. I love animated voice acting work. I think that is a really hard craft to do, and I think it's a tired, lazy narrative to just say it's like people at a microphone just like spilling words into a thing and then letting it go out into animation. I think it's a significantly harder process than that, which is why I don't think all of them work. And I really like Joan Cusack in that movie. I think in general, the Toy Story films, all four of them, have had really exceptional voice work from all of the actors. Like, they stand out to me. And when you see behind the scenes footage of it, those actors are clearly doing stuff at the microphone. They're not just like holding a piece of paper, reading words off of a sheet. So I'm always on board and advocating for voice acting getting recognition and getting time for this. At some point later this year, I'm going to do like a bonus episode where I get some people on both sides of the conversation, maybe some people who don't like voice acting and people who want to defend it. And I'm going to get a little bit of a debate going. So I might bring you back for that at a later date, Damon, if you're open to it.
Always welcome. Always welcome. Yeah. And I was just always going to say, Chloe Sevigny, I didn't get a chance to say, I thought she was fantastic. And there's a lot of work to do in Boys Don't Cry opposite another performance. I just wanted to say, I think she does a really good job because her character goes through some odd questioning of her own sexuality, her own ideas on who she is, who people are around her. And it's you've only just watched this, Seth, Boys Don't Cry, like literally in the last few hours. So you've probably I watched it, I think, a few months back, but her performance I thought was a really smart performance. Like, just something about her, I think, really made the film work for Brandon / Tina's character. Yeah, I just thought it was worth mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely. I was glad that you put in Joan Cusack for Toy Story. And I think that sequels are very hard. You know, Toy Story 2 for years has always been put on the list of sequels that are as good or better than the number one, right? And that's a very hard thing to do and to pull off. So that list is quite small. But I think that Joan Cusack and the character of Jessie is like the exact right injection into like how do you introduce new characters so that you don't resent them? Like, I'm a Forky hater. Toy Story 4, you can keep that movie 100%. Not that I hate Forky, but maybe give me a Forky movie. Why did it need to be, you know what I mean? I didn't think that that was the right character and tone to inject into a cast of characters. I'll say that. Yeah. But Jessie does work. And I think, you know, her sequence, I think it's the song When She Loved Me. You know, when we see that's some of the best Pixar stuff ever. That, you know, that's pretty great. So yeah, I think it's a good choice.
Damon, where do you stand on Toy Story 4? I am of the mindset, just like Seth is, that movie has no business being in existence. Like, you could not have ended Toy Story 3 in a better spot with one of the all-time great trilogy endings in cinematic history, and then Toy Story 4 is just kind of like a nothing burger.
I think it's a really good point. I think that you're right. Like, those three movies are near perfect. Like, 3 10 out of 10s. Like, I don't see any problem with them. The thing is, Toy Story 4, I think it came out in 2018, maybe 2018, I might be wrong on that, but it was a good age for me to take my children and share the Toy Story love at the time, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. We've got it coming again for younger parents. The Toy Story 5 is going to be coming out in the next few years. Now, I don't think that's a good idea, but at the same time, I've got to start thinking, getting people to the cinema, getting those moments with your children. It's like a family event, I think. And I agree with you. Toy Story 4 had some good things in it, but I haven't really, I think I've watched it again, but I don't think I'll ever feel the need to watch it again because I don't think there's a lot of the message. I think what it is the messages in all the first 3 movies are really clear and they're really deep and they work really well. I don't think Toy Story 4 quite knows what the messages they are trying to say. And I think as such, you end up with a bit of a mishmash of a movie, but it's still great fun seeing the characters. But you're right. Like, you know, it's the same reason, like if ever they go back and do Back to the Future, I'll just stop watching films because I think when you end a trilogy perfectly, why bother keep going? It's money, isn't it? It's all about money.
It's always nice to see another Back to the Future 3 appreciatory.
Yeah, you know, I've rewatched that trilogy's just one day I'm going to talk about that trilogy. Toy Story, Back to the Future are probably on a par as damn near perfect, you know, genuinely as a trilogy, as a collective of movies. Yeah, we've gone off a tangent there, haven't we? Yeah. Toy Story 4 is fine, but I don't think it's anywhere near the classic status of the other 3. That's the key.
Yeah, I had a similar experience when you said, "Oh, did it come out in 2018?" In my head, I was like, "That sounds about right," because my son was born in 2013, and we took him to the theaters to see it, and he had a great time.
Yeah,
and that's one of the best things for loving any type of art is to have children, because they help remind you of what a sad old sack you are.
Yeah.
And, you know, we took him to see Toy Story 4, and the whole time I'm like, this sucks. But he's sitting in the seat next to me laughing at the fluff attack, you know, from the stuffed animals, and he's having a great time. I took him to see the Mario movie that they put out, and I'm like, this is the worst. And he's like, that was a great movie. We went to see the Marvels, and the cats scene from the Marvels, which I was actually, I liked the Marvels. I thought it was really funny. But we walked out of the theater, and he said to me, he was like, that was the funniest scene of any movie I've ever seen. And it was so cool to be like, oh, he's old enough now that he can start to have those. And he can start to, you know, have those memories. Like when I was in 1999 and I went to see episode 1.
Yeah.
And I walked out of the theater and I said, that was the coolest thing I've ever seen, you know, because we end on the high note, right, in that film. I didn't remember any of the stuff that everyone was complaining about. And all the adults in my life were like, da, 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 da. I was like, what are they talking about? We didn't see the same movie. So yeah, watch movies with kids if you can. If you don't have kids of your own, find your nieces and nephews. You know, if you've got friends who've got kids, tell them to take a date night and you'll take their kids to see a kids movie. It's good for you, I think. It helps break down, you know, we like to say that everything is subjective until someone disagrees with us. It's hard to be a sad old jerk when a kid next to you is like bouncing in their seat, you know?
Absolutely. We did shameless plug from me, but like our last episode on our podcast, we did a breakdown of Up because that film I've watched with my kids and I've watched it on my own and it breaks me every time. and I realize what Pixar, going back to Pixar, like what they bring to the table now, and I think that's the thing, like their standards are so high. When they make a 7 out of 10 movie, which is fine, there's some, you know, fine 7 out of 10s for Pixar, it feels like a big drop, but they have so many. I mean, I'm not going to turn this into another podcast, Andrew, but they have so many stone cold classics, Pixar, that I think it's recognizable when they've not put a film out that's quite at the standard. By the way, just as a side note, can we have just a few minutes to talk about a Phantom Menace later? I've just got a couple of things I want to say.
Well, it's funny. I was about to just bring it up at this exact moment because I was thinking we're probably not going to have much Phantom Menace category love. I was 14 at the time. I thought the Duel of the Fates and all of that stuff was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen. I was like obsessed with Star Wars at that age. So like the cynicism hadn't yet hit me. Now, Damon, you're a couple years older than me. Where was your Phantom Menace experience in '99 versus like how do you view it now?
So I'll be honest with you. I was only really a fan of the Star Wars toys. And the movies, they were really hard to get on the TV when we were kids. Like, so in the early 90s, I don't know what happened, but the rights to the Star Wars movies it was like getting them on terrestrial TV was a real problem. So I kept missing them. And Return of the Jedi was the film I kept watching the most, and I really loved it. And I had one of the Walker machines. I've still got it somewhere, absolutely torn to pieces. But when the Phantom Menace came out, it was nuts over in England, like it was in America. Like everyone was going wild. Now I wasn't quite there, but I was, this is great. You know, movies, Star Wars, brilliant. I remember, and I'll come on to this later as well. Like at the exact same time in England, The Matrix was out about a week before, and I think we sidestepped The Phantom Menace because the queues were just enormous, and we couldn't. So we went to watch The Matrix instead. I'll come back to The Matrix later.
Sure.
But The Phantom Menace, I went and watched it. Actually, no, I'll come back to The Matrix now. I watched it once, enjoyed it. That Jedi fight is insane and is genuinely some of the best bit of cinema I've ever seen. I stand by that. That Jedi fight between Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, Qui-Gon, that is cinema. I don't care what anyone says. Come at me. That is amazing. The rest of the movie, not so much. But what I've noticed is working in my workplace, there's a lot of youngsters that are like in their mid-20s, early, around about that. And to them, The Phantom Menace was their Star Wars, their first trilogy. So again, going back to your point, Seth and Andrew as well, like, who am I? I don't think I was actually that down on Phantom Menace. It's clearly not that great a movie, but I don't think it's the car wreck that everyone really wants to kind of go at. But who am I to shit on the formative Star Wars movies? And this again from 2015 Force Awakens, I have issues with certainly Rise of Skywalker, but again, those are my kids' Star Wars movies, so they'll look back on those ones fondly. So that's the thing. I think we've got to try and remember this, like as we get older, that the youngsters that come through, they won't always like the old stuff. They want to watch what's for their time, and that's how it should be. And I don't want to shit on it. And the Phantom Menace, I make a point of not. I actually hate it when people really go at it. I hate the fact that the guy that played Jar Jar Binks got hounded. Yeah. Hayden Christensen, bless him, he got a lot of love recently when he returned to the role, and I think that was great because it showed him it wasn't all middle-aged men that were like fed up that their Star Wars movie had been ruined. He realized he'd spoken to a load of children at their time when they loved Star Wars movies. And I hope that the same happens with the recent ones, because there's been a lot of hate for one of those movies in particular. And I hope it gets reevaluated and re-loved again.
Yeah, I've got a cousin who's like 5-ish years younger than me, and he's the most Star Wars obsessed person I've ever met in my life. And for him, the new trilogy is as good as the original trilogy. And like that's a perfectly valid, acceptable opinion. Like again, I'm not here to yuck anyone's yum. If you like something, good for you. Like it doesn't have to be for me for it to be for you. And like if you love it, it's not taking anything away from my experience with it. If you love it, like good. I hope somebody loves that movie. I hope the end of the affair is somebody's favorite movie. I like it's not gonna matter if I don't like it and they do like it. Like those things can both coexist. And that's this crazy, I'm not gonna get on a soapbox, but like this crazy day and age we live in social media where it's just like all about fighting and negativity, and like just let everybody enjoy what they enjoy. Like there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely. Here.
Yeah, I try to limit the amount that I talk about Star Wars, because for some people it's like one of the 3 things that they're capable of talking about, and I'm so sick of hearing about it that I'm like, you know what? I don't need to ever talk about it again for the rest of my life. I love the movies. And for the people who are upset, by the way, about new Star Wars, and they'll champion the original trilogy, ask them how they feel about Kurosawa's Hidden Fortress. Seriously, say, oh, so you're really, really into not departing from source material, right? How do you feel about Hidden Fortress? Do you know that A New Hope is based on another film from another filmmaker? Go watch that. Tell me how you feel about it. And if you come away from that and say, no, I still prefer Star Wars, then I don't care. I never want to hear... you don't then you don't actually care about the sanctity of the original, because that is the original, and people aren't even aware of that. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. Last Jedi is my favorite Star Wars movie, so I'm not really one that likes to engage in Star Wars talk. By the way, one of the reasons why is because Last Jedi pays homage to Rashomon, which is another Kurosawa film, and it's the only other Star Wars film to go back to the Kurosawa influences. That's why I love it so much. Also, it's cool. But when I walked out of the theater, again, from watching that movie, so Damon's a few years older than you, I'm a few years younger than you. Again, the only thing in my mind was like pod racing and that fight. And I think that fight stands the test of time more so than the pod racing, because so much of it is practical. I remember hearing Ewan McGregor talk about how they trained so thoroughly for that fight scene that they had to slow it down when it came time to actually film, because they were doing it too fast for the cameras. And that's great. I love that. And yeah, it's great. It's elegant but barbaric. It's epic, but there's only 3 characters. We're in these massive, massive rooms. But again, most of the stuff is practical looking. It's great. I think that's probably the best directed scene of his career. If we're talking about George Lucas. And I love the original trilogy. I grew up watching that, and it's all good. But again, I'm Star Warsed out for the rest of my life. We need to argue about Star Trek as passionately as we argue about Star Wars. And I've never even really seen a lot of Star Trek stuff. But let's move on.
Yeah,
not from this episode.
Yeah,
I'm not complaining about you guys right now. 99. It was a huge deal, and if you weren't alive back then, every magazine, every fast food, I mean, it was I don't think there could be a person in the entire country, at least of America, who did not know that Star Wars was coming out, and at the time there weren't tons of legacy sequels. The End of the Affair, that's a remake of a film that came out, but it's not like people were clamoring for that or necessarily had it in their head. They weren't like, oh my God, they're going to remake End of the Affair. But we were all like, it's possible to make another Star Wars. And we're talking like, yeah, you know how it's episode 4, 5, and 6. This is going to be episode 1, 2, and 3. And then they're going to do 7, 8, 9. And then eventually they'll finish it with 10. And yeah, it was an amazing time to be a fat kid.
Well, I don't know if we can top segueing away to the next category better than that. So thank you for that, Seth. All right, let's get to the best supporting actor now.
Yeah, we're doing good. Hour 36, and we're on to category 2.
This is the way it goes every month with this thing.
People always complain about, we need to create unlimited energy, a perpetual motion machine. They just need to get film podcasters to never stop talking.
It's funny, every month after an episode goes up, I'll have somebody reach out to me on any social media platform. They're like, Andrew, really? 188 minutes this month? Are you kidding me? And it's like, it just happens. Things just happen when you get in this space.
It's an entire year. It's
right.
It's kind of hard.
I'm only doing it once a month, so like if it takes you 30 days to listen to the episode, more power to you. All right, let's get to supporting actor really quickly, and we'll see where we end up on this one. So 1999, the 5 guys nominated for supporting actor were Michael Clark Duncan for The Green Mile, Tom Cruise for Magnolia, Haley Joel Osment for The Sixth Sense, Jude Law for The Talented Mr. Ripley, and Michael Caine won for his performance in The Cider House Rules. Haley Joel Osment also became the second youngest actor to receive a nomination, only being eclipsed by Justin Henry, who was 8 at the time when he was nominated for Kramer vs. Kramer in 1979. All right, Seth, our little chaos monster on this episode. Let's see what you do with this category. Give us some honorable mentions, your 5 nominees, your winner. What do you got for us?
All right. So for honorable mentions, first up, I'm going to shout out John Hannah from The Mummy. I've been rewatching the Mummy films a lot lately, both of them. My 4-year-old has fallen in love with them. And the first time we watched them, I was like, this is too scary for you. What are you kidding me? And I'm just, gobsmacked. On the show a few months back, we did swashbuckling films. And it struck me how this genre of adventure, swashbuckling has really just kind of gone away. I think that we're way too cynical to appreciate, just a hero fighting things with his hands. Nowadays with the Marvel movies, it's all about powers and quips and teamwork and whatever. And so revisiting the Mummy movies, it's been awesome. John Hannah, I think he gives such a funny performance as Jonathan, the brother. But I love it. And I think it's really kind of undervalued. Next, I would give William H. Macy in Magnolia honorable mention. Great. There's a lot of moving parts in that movie. And he's really doing something. I love him in just about everything I've ever seen him in. I could have also put him in this year for Mystery Men as the shoveler. Talking about, as we mentioned earlier, how a lot of actors and even directors had wide spreads in their year. William H. Macy had a really interesting 99.
I shovel well. I shovel very well.
That's right.
I mean, come on. You shovel better than any man I've ever known.
Yes.
That movie's so underappreciated by people nowadays. I love Mystery Men.
It's a great movie.
It's a disaster, kind of. You know what Mystery Men is like? It's like when you really love a burrito place, and then you go one day, and they didn't wrap it right. And so it's like, I love all these ingredients, but it's causing a big mess. I'm still going to eat it. Yeah. But, yeah.
And you'll be back. You'll be back to eat it again.
Yeah. And then Sidney Pollack in Eyes Wide Shut. He's not in it a lot, but the scenes that he's in, I feel like my dad's yelling at me. You know what I mean? Like, you feel him coming through the screen, I think, in the few scenes that he's in. So then for my actual nominees, which I will not give 6 this time. So we've talked about this movie way more than I thought we would already. Holy cow. And here I am nominating someone from it. But as I already mentioned, Stephen Ree, I don't know how to say his name, from The End of the Affair, he saves that movie. I thought he did a lot as the husband whose wife is having an affair. He did a lot more. You know, he stood around in the rain, but it could have been just that, and it wasn't. It was great. He's great in that. Next up, I would say Chris Cooper in American Beauty. I'm sorry if we were going for a perfect streak of not nominating this film, but I can't deny Chris Cooper. He's awesome. If you haven't seen Adaptation, he's great in Adaptation, but I think he's great in pretty much everything that he's in, and I love him in American Beauty. I remember the first time watching the film, I was like, I don't really get why this is so beloved. And then when we come through everything with him, I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Like, yeah. So Chris Cooper for sure. Tom Flanagan in Ratcatcher. Just scary. A little heartbreaking, I think. It's hard. You never, as a person who likes characters and film, it's always tough to be like, oh, I feel so much for this person. And people are like, what is wrong with you? That guy's a horrible person. But I mean, my heart goes out to every single character in Ratcatcher. My God. And then especially when you read about, the real life trash strikes and all that stuff, it's like, dear God.
That's the Britain I'm more familiar with, Seth, as opposed to The End of the Affair.
Yes.
I know that's Scotland, but that's the Britain I can relate to.
When you were talking earlier and you were saying, like, Britain isn't beautiful and stuff, I was going to say, is it more close to, like, This Is England?
Yeah.
End of the Affair?
Yeah, This Is England is filmed kind of around the area I don't live in the same area, it's the same region, but yeah, it's areas I can recognize, not fancy London hotels.
And then Russell Crowe from The Insider. This was kind of weird, but since I'm the one making the category, I guess I put Pacino. Not that I'm giving away who I'm nominating for actor, but I put Pacino more as the lead in that, and Russell Crowe is supporting. I thought Russell Crowe was awesome in this. I looked into it. He was 35, so he was younger than I am. In The Insider. They finished filming The Insider in early October of 98. And then he began filming Gladiator in January of 99. So in 2 months. So go look at a picture of Russell Crowe in The Insider and then in Gladiator in 2 months. That's the difference. And so great testament to his talent and also to hair and makeup and costuming, because I don't think you could get any different from those two characters in a 2-month span. And then my winner for supporting actor, and this, I don't think that this is a makeup Oscar, but as I watched the film, I was like, this sucks. This isn't very good. Holy cow. But then again, when we came to the end of this character's arc, my jaw dropped multiple times. And that's Delroy Lindo in The Cider House Rules. I was floored by what he did in a short amount of time. You get a wide range of performance out of him. And it was amazing. So Delroy, at least in my heart, you are an Oscar winner. It should have been for The Five Bloods, but oh well.
Oh, I mean, I've been on Delroy since I praised Crooklyn a few months back for a different episode. I love what Delroy Lindo does. Great pick right there. All right, let's go to mine. Then we'll go over to Damon to round out the category. So really quickly, I'll give my honorable mentions. I'm always a sucker for a comedy nomination. I really wanted to get either Gary Cole or Stephen Root from Office Space into there. Those two characters are so ingrained in my conscience, and just great characters. Philip Seymour Hoffman and talented Mr. Ripley is incredible. One of the great introductions of a character in the history of film, when he hops out of the car and he sprints over and he's got all this swagger and bravado about him, and it's just a very different role from Philip Seymour Hoffman that I love that guy. And then Tommy Flanagan, Ratcatcher, that performance stands out a lot in that movie. So those are the guys that just missed out for me. Here's the 5 I've got, though. I've got John Malkovich in Being John Malkovich, which sounds silly that the movie's literally named him, but he's very much a support in that film to John Cusack and everyone else that's doing a lot of the other work there. John Malkovich, it's such a meta film, I appreciate that he's able to just be on that level with Spike Jonze and what they're doing in that movie. Second nomination is going to go to Brad Pitt in Fight Club. I think for me, it's the defining role of Brad Pitt's career. Like I think when people close their eyes and they think of Brad Pitt, they think of the image of him in Fight Club. I think he's really great in that movie. Third nominee is going to go to Philip Seymour Hoffman for Magnolia. I'm also going to give Tom Cruise an Oscar nomination for Magnolia. Those two guys and what they do in that film is just, it's crazy what they're doing in that movie. Fifth and final nominee is going to go to Lawrence Fishburne for The Matrix. Again, I just think action movies just too often get like set aside, and it's like, oh, it's an action movie. We don't really talk about the performances in like this huge awards recognition, but Lawrence Fishburne shows a lot of different range and emotion in that movie. He's a badass. He's also got soul and depth and heart and everything he's doing there. And I also want to quickly mention, I don't have Haley Joel Osment in contention for supporting. I moved him into lead acting, which might be a little controversial, but when we get to lead acting, he might show up there. I think Haley Joel is very much a co-lead alongside Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense. But it's going to come down to two guys. I know people are probably thinking, Andrew, you're obviously going to pick Brad Pitt. It's Fight Club. That's just the movie I love. But it came down to the two Magnolia gentlemen, Philip Seymour Hoffman and Tom Cruise. And I was just trying to decide which of the two I wanted to give it to. I'm going Tom Cruise in Magnolia. It's such a stark contrast from the Tom Cruise that we have today, where he's just this action guy and he likes to be a stuntman effectively. But the two scenes in Magnolia that stand out for me as maybe two of the most important scenes in 1999. The first scene is the interview with him and the interviewer who's grilling him and sort of prying into his backstory, and the sort of blank stare and all of the anger that's seething behind him that he can't sort of let out. It's a really great performance where he's not doing a whole lot on the surface, but there's just all this boiling over behind the scenes. And then when we get to the climactic scene later in the film where he's at the bedside of Jason Robards, his father, the depth of emotion that he runs through in that scene, pain, sadness, anger, sorrow, regret, like there's everything that a person goes through in a time of peril in that particular scene. And it just reminded me that we're so far removed from Tom Cruise being this guy who really showed his range as an actor, and he was not afraid to take daring roles and provocative roles, and he had a pretty good run there for the late 90s where he was comfortable doing that, and now he's settled into this new spot in his career. I hope that now that we're almost past the Mission Impossible movies, we're finally going to get to the point where Cruise pushes himself again as an actor. I know he's going to be in an Iñárritu film coming up, and I think that it behooves Tom Cruise to go back to his roots as being a guy who is comfortable dabbling in all these different genres and going with directors and stuff. So yeah, Tom Cruise, Magnolia, love everything about that movie. Damon, let's go over to you now. Who do you have nominated and winning?
Yeah, a few honourable mentions for me. You've already mentioned so many of them, guys, but I'm going to put a few in there. I will give a bit of credence to Michael Caine. I know he won the Oscar. I think it was still a good performance, and Cider House Rules, I didn't dislike it as much as you, Andrew, but I think Caine's performance is good, and it is nuanced enough to be given credibility. I just think he's been better in other films, but I think it was still pretty good. I'm going to go just one I want to mention as well. I don't think he get a lot of love, and it's not something I'd give a nomination for, but I thought he's brilliant in it. Was Ving Rhames in Bringing Out the Dead. He's only in it for like 5 to 10 minutes of screen time probably, but he plays it so well, and he's so charismatic, and it was brilliant to see Ving Rhames giving that level of performance. Like, he's brilliant in everything I see him in, but he's normally the cool guy, you know, and obviously everyone knows him from Mission Impossible and, of course, Marcellus Wallace in Pulp Fiction. But I was really happy to revisit that and go, yes, Ving Rhames really giving his all. Like, I wanted that as a notable mention. Michael Clarke Duncan, obviously Green Mile. I've got a load of honourable mentions supporting actor. He was good. I just think the performance was a typical Oscar nominee, but it was still a good performance. But I just felt it a bit over the top to be given a nomination. A bit, I don't know. I felt a bit harsh about this one, but I just felt it was just a bit overblown. But he was still great in it. So yeah, I'd give him credence for that. Philip Seymour Hoffman in Magnolia and Talented Mr. Ripley, brilliant. Like, both films, he's brilliant in. Just didn't quite make my final cut. I've got so many shortlisted him. William H. Macy as well, Magnolia, just brilliant again. Didn't quite make it. Chris Cooper, American Beauty. The one I've just bumped off my list, but he's brilliant, but I just couldn't justify it, but he's great fun. Hugo Weaving in The Matrix. I just think when he's on screen,
absolutely,
you lean in. Like, he's basically playing the human manifestation of AI. Like, but how well he does it. Like, he's now become the template for every corporate evil. That guy, you know it. Like, it's been referenced in so many films. That kind of character, the suit, the sunglasses, the monotone talking, Mr. Anderson. Like, he's just everything about. I love Hugo Weaving. Like, he's just. I wish I could have put him in my nominees. I nearly did, and obviously Lawrence Fishburne also I count as a support. I think them two do such a great job. I just think that the level of training they did as well. Let's not forget, look, they probably reinvented, obviously Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss as well. They reinvented what action movies should be, and they reinvented the amount of time and effort and choreography actors should put themselves in. And I think after The Matrix, actors suddenly looked at themselves and went, I think I need to put a bit more effort in here because these guys have just knocked it out of the park. And I genuinely, ever since then, actors have been really willing to go, oh yeah, I'll do that. I'll get involved. Maybe Tom Cruise was already doing it, but these guys went, we're going to just learn some martial arts and we're going to kick some ass and we're going to make a movie that isn't going to be forgotten. Spoiler, I will definitely be talking about The Matrix a bit more later. Right, my nominees, I went off on one then. Right, so first, has to be spoken about, Brad Pitt in Fight Club. He gets a nomination. Brilliant performance, iconic. The kind of the fancy dress choice after that, the fact that every guy definitely wanted to look like Brad Pitt in Fight Club. The film, in my opinion, has been unfairly reevaluated and completely misses the satire of the film that Brad Pitt perfectly exemplifies. Like, I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it again when we come to Fight Club later on, because it's a satire, people. And if you don't understand that, you need to go and look at what satire means. And you also need to go and look at what this film meant at the time. Brad Pitt was playing, it's not lost on David Fincher that he cast Brad Pitt as Tyler Durden. It's pretty obvious what he was doing. He was doing the thing of going, this is the guy you all want to be. This is the guy you will secretly dream you want to be. This is the guy that looks amazing. He's beautiful to look at. He's just made of just granite. He's a fantastic, but this is a character you shouldn't want to be. And Brad Pitt played that perfectly. But the film, as amazing as it is and as amazing as performance is, I don't think he is doing the nuanced performance that I would give an award to. Like, it's still brilliant, but I don't think it's quite gone that far. But I just had to mention Brad Pitt. How could you not mention Brad Pitt in a 1999 episode? It's just like, it just has to be done. John C. Reilly, I put for Magnolia. That's a little bit of a left field choice, but I find this part so sweet, so wholesome, so good. I'm amazed he didn't get more love. John C. Reilly is, I think, not only is he a brilliant actor, I think he's one of the funniest actors going. I just love him. And he brings a lot of that to this role. He's quite quirky and, hey, this is Jim here. Like, he's given his dating voicemail, and it's goofy and it's perfectly toned. But then you've got the devastation of him just kind of feeling like he's a loser cop later on because he loses his gun And again, then he finds this Melora Walters character who's clearly a broken woman, and he falls for her. And there's some beauty in that. Magnolia takes you through a lot of hard stuff, and I think and it's interesting that the movie ends with John C. Reilly's character talking. You can barely hear him because the way the film gets cut, but I think he's the heart of that movie. He's the hope of that film, and I think he that's a hard role to play because it can come across really cheesy, but I think he really gives it something extra. And Magnolia, because of his performance, has some brightness at the end, and I think that can't be forgotten. And I just wish he did more roles like this because John C. Reilly's brilliant. That being said, give me John C. Reilly and a Step Brothers and the Talladega Nights any day of the week because he's just brilliant. I'm rattling through this really slowly. Sorry. Al Pacino in The Insider. I've gone the other way. I think he's the support to Russell Crowe, but I totally accept why he could be seen to be the other way around as the best actor as well, because I think he opens the movie and a lot of the story drives through him. It's a really interesting one when you do it, Andrew, because what do you is it screen time? Is it importance of character? Is it whose story it is? That and The Inside is really interesting because it is Russell Crowe's character's story, but only driven by Al Pacino's character. So it's like I've gone back and forth on this one, but I've put him in the nominees for supporting actor. But I do think they're interchangeable, and I think that's the perfect reason why you can have interchangeable nominees in this category. My next nomination is just because I think it's brilliant, it's genius to put an actor in a movie with his name in it and not have him the lead is hilarious. So John Malkovich for being John Malkovich, because he does so much fun in that. It's the biggest. And I'm glad being John Malkovich actually did get some love. So I have to give the Academy a little bit of credibility here. They did show being John Malkovich some love. They didn't weirdly show John Malkovich love for playing himself and playing a version of himself. Maybe they were just like, this is too crazy. We can't just give a guy a performance of playing himself. But he wasn't playing himself. He was playing a version of himself and several versions of himself, and a version of himself that was John Cusack's character that inhabited his body. Do you know what I mean? If you think about what he does in that film, he plays about 20 different parts. Like, all right, some of them he's only in it for like a few seconds. I genuinely think John Malkovich is amazing in that film. And my final nomination is Tom Cruise in Magnolia for all the reasons you've said, Andrew. He is amazing. He shows everything. What I think he didn't touch upon, because I think rightly talked about the scene when he's with Jason Robards at the end, is the bits when he's doing the bravado Frank TJ Mackey in front of the baying crowd of alpha males, probably incels, all kind of baying for blood, seek and destroy kind of. There's stuff that he's trying to play with the crowd, and what they do is they start the film with that hilariously with the music and the words that he says that I won't repeat, which are hilarious and both troubling. And then later on, when he has the interaction with the interview, he comes back to the part 2, and you can see she's chipped away at his persona, and he plays that. There's a point he does something where he almost, it looks like he's revealed something about his character, and you see Cruise give that to the audience where he's kind of lost a moment, and he's just kind of gone, what? Because my parents didn't see me at soccer practice. I'm paraphrasing, I can't remember the line, but you can tell there's some truth in it, and he does it with his eyes, and then he throws the table out because he forgets something, and you can tell he thinks this whole facade of who he is bullshit. And that, to finish that off, is why I'm going with you, Andrew. Tom Cruise gets my actual Oscar.
Awesome.
Snap.
You thought we were going to align at some point, so
he's amazing.
A little earlier, yeah.
My wife hates Tom Cruise and a lot of her family, and I say to them, to watch Magnolia, you need to have a good look at that performance, because it's brave, because that's the kind of character they thought he was in real life, and maybe some people still do. I don't think Tom Cruise is by any means a perfect person, but I think there's a lot more to him than a fake smile and the Scientology. I think he's a human being, and I think there is stuff there. He loves movies. I know that much for a certainty. He loves making films.
Yeah, I have certain issues personally with Cruise and the Scientology aspect of his personal life, but like I sort of have to. We're going to get to it in a couple of categories. It can sometimes be easy, or it can sometimes be really hard to compartmentalize personal stuff from the performance, and I'll leave it at that for the moment. Michael Caine, I didn't mention him in my nominees. I think he's very good in Cider House Rules. He's just being Michael Caine, and I think he's done better. But I was really happy in his acceptance speech. He was typically charming and fun and really genuine. And he also had this great line where he sort of joked to Tom Cruise, who was sitting sort of front row, and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "you should be actually really glad you didn't win this, because if you did, you'd be paid to scale of a supporting actor, and I promise you don't want that. So just enjoy being a lead actor." And I was like, that was a cool little moment from Michael Caine, just sort of showing a little humility and wit in the moment, and he didn't seem to like take the Oscar too seriously or anything like that. Like.
He's one where I don't have any problem with the Academy giving Michael Caine an Oscar to. Like, I've no issues with that whatsoever. And in England, he's a bit of an institution. We all do a Michael Caine impression because we all love him. Like, he's just great. I love him.
Yeah. I don't. I don't think he should have won an Oscar for this. I think that Michael Caine is awesome. He's so good, and he's so good at doing the Michael Caine thing. We all do Michael Caine impersonations here in the States as well. If you think that you can't, the best advice that I have ever seen with any accent is just say my cocaine. And if you say my cocaine, that's how you do it. But I thought he was horrible in Cider House Rules. The accent that they're having him do. Hey, you know what? If you are going to make a film based on a book, you're going to have to make some concessions. Some things will change. And guess what you change? You change that this doctor is from this place. Guess what? He's from England. End of story. You have Michael Caine. My doctor's from England now, and there's no problem. You don't have to take legendary actor Michael Caine and make him do an accent that makes him sound kind of like this, and he kind of is. It's horrible. And I think it's just they shouldn't have put it on him. And
channeling Cary Grant, that's what he was trying to go for, and he didn't quite.
Okay,
work.
Yeah, I can see that. But yeah, I liked his performance. I liked everything he had to say. I know people like to make fun of his good night line. I thought that was good. I have 2 boys, and there's stuff that I say to them every night. I thought he was good as this father, but man, there's better stuff he could have been nominated for sure. Yeah.
I also took a real quick note when you guys were talking about sort of your flip-flopping of The Insider when he had Pacino, when he had Russell Crowe. I think that this happens every single episode when we talk about category manipulation, category fraud. It's literally just happened a week ago from recording in the actual Oscars. There was debate about Kieran Culkin. Is he a lead? Is he a support?
Yeah.
I think that what we continually highlight in this is that that's sort of an outdated, antiquated thing. Like, the roles of actors nowadays are so hybrid and it's so fluid that it can often be hard to categorize somebody as a lead versus a support, because it's just a very fluid process. So like, I feel like at some point the Oscars, the Academy needs to revisit just the very nature of the split, because it sort of does feel like we've moved past that collectively. Like, you can just award a best actor or something, that's kind of where I stand on that.
This might be a big question to ask, and I don't want to make another hour on top of this long podcast, but do you think because of the Magnolias in this, there's an argument for maybe best ensemble cast?
Absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely.
Because Magnolia would win, but I'm sure there'd be every year you'd have a good portion of movies that would be able to submit a good ensemble cast. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, we do it for SAG. I'm sure there's other awards shows out there that do ensembles.
Yeah. You know what I think they should do?
What's that?
I think they should expand all categories. So 10 actors, 10 actresses, 20 best foreign films. Like, stop playing around. If you want to say that you're the authority on what the best are and you're Hollywood's biggest night, then your categories should reflect that. And I think and this is just me, I think each of the acting categories should have 3 winners. so that you can represent a year in a spread of winners. So you don't say, hey, guess who was the best actor this year? Kevin Spacey in American Beauty. You can put Kevin Spacey up there, and you can put Tom Cruise up there, and you can put Julianne Moore up there. And you can say, this is the best acting from this year. Here, you all get 2 minutes to make a speech. And then one person doesn't make a total fool of themselves, giving a 5-minute and 40-second speech. Yeah. But, you know, that's just me.
You have just blown my mind with that. I have never heard anyone articulate a concept like that. That's so original, so awesome, Seth. We gotta like.
Well, thank you. I should be Mr. Oscar.
To build on Seth's point, I think what we should do as well is the Oscars should be split over 2 nights like WrestleMania, and it should be like absolute. Just go for it. The razzmatazz. Let's just turn this whole thing into like a weekend.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I dig it. Seth, Mr. Oscar Vargas, has come up with the best idea ever.
Damon, I agree with you, because I think that the only reason for watching the Oscars is the opulence, the pageantry. Lean into it. Conan O'Brien shouldn't feel like he has to cut time for really funny jokes and bits and song and dance things so that somebody can ramble on about nothing, you know, like, and then give the technical people time.
Yeah.
I want to hear from the dudes from Latvia who made a movie using Blender talk about it. And they can, anyway, you know, whatever.
I mean, yeah, we could go on and on, but I love the idea of expansion of nominees, especially the one that stuck out to me when you said it was Best International Feature. The idea that we're compartmentalizing the entire world's production for a year into 5 films is so asinine.
But we get 10.
Yes, right.
Yes,
right.
You know. Come on. What? Oh, don't get. Look. All right. I'm going to stop.
we got hot, heated Seth in the room right now. All right, well, let's move on to the next category, but there will be 3 options for Best Supporting Actor when we get to the online vote. The Cider House rules will be represented 2 times. The Academy for Michael Caine's performance. Seth has Delroy Lindo in that film, and then Damon and I are together. Tom Cruise in Magnolia. It's a good trio right there. All right, so Best Actress for 1999. Your nominees were Annette Bening in American Beauty, Julianne Moore in The End of the Affair, Meryl Streep in Music of the Heart, Janet McTeer in Tumbleweeds, and the Oscar went to Hilary Swank for her dynamic role in Boys Don't Cry. It's going to be my turn to kick things off, and then I'll go over to you fine gentlemen. So here are my honorable mentions really quickly, and then I'll get to my 5. This was a bit of a weak category, unfortunately, for me. And again, it's a detriment to women not getting enough opportunities to lead films. That's just so crazy to me. There's so much talent on the female side of things in cinema, and they deserve significantly more opportunities to lead films. And so I'm sad that I don't have a really great rounded category, because it was just there just weren't a lot of lead female performances. But I'll shout out Cecilia Roth in All About My Mother, a film I'm a big fan of. Julia Roberts in Notting Hill. This will be the only time I talk about Notting Hill right now. I am not a Notting Hill guy, or at least I wasn't until I revisited it for prep. And maybe it's because I'm almost 40 and I'm softening. I'm in my positivity era. I had a damn good time with Notting Hill. It just made me happy for the first time ever in my life. So
yeah.
Do you know what it is, Andrew? Everyone loves Hugh Grant now. And now when you watch an old Hugh Grant movie, everyone's like, actually.
Yeah. That's what it is. I had just come off Heretic. I was feeling Hugh Grant at the time. That's what it is. Yeah.
Here's Julia my hot take, by the way. I'm sorry to interrupt, Andrew. My hot take, in the next 5 years, Hugh Grant will win an Oscar.
I could see that.
I don't know what for, but just for anything.
He's definitely got a lot of equity right now. Like people are definitely vibing on Hugh.
Yeah, he'll play a doctor with a Maine accent.
Cider House Rules 2. That needs a sequel.
All right, so here are the 5 women I have nominated for lead actress in '99. I have Annette Bening, just like the Academy did for American Beauty. I've got Hilary Swank, also like the Academy did for Boys Don't Cry. I've got Reese Witherspoon for Election. I was a fan of Reese Witherspoon in that movie. Seth didn't seem totally in love with maybe the character or the performance, but I'm definitely in the Reese Witherspoon fan camp, so I'm going to put her in there. I've got Nicole Kidman for Eyes Wide Shut. Now, this could be argued that it's a supporting performance and Cruise is the only lead, but I think Nicole Kidman is very much a co-lead of that film, especially on the front end of that film where she's got a lot of stuff with the back and forth when they're in the room, they're smoking pot and all that stuff. Like Nicole Kidman's got a lot of dialogue and the film really revolves around her character in a lot of ways. So I've got her in my 5. And then the one that surprised me was the one I'd never seen the film, so I'd never seen the performance. Janet McTeer in Tumbleweeds. Okay, Tumbleweeds. I can't say I loved Tumbleweeds, but I really thoroughly enjoyed what McTeer brought to that film. I kind of want to go back and watch it again just for her in that movie. Damon, I know you've got it on a physical media right behind you on your shelf for watchers of this right now. It's a good movie. It was a hard to find movie, but it was a good movie, and Janet McTeer deserves your time and attention. So check out that movie. She's not going to get my win though. My win is going to go to Seth. You beat around the bush a little bit. You said we're probably not going to talk about this movie too many times. I don't think American Beauty is a very good film. I think there's a lot of flaws that I have with the movie. Acting, thematically, Mendes is directing. There's so many things I have issues with that movie. The one thing that I think unequivocally cannot be talked about in a negative light is Annette Bening and her performance in that movie. Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, for me, she carries that film quietly through it, and it might be my favorite Annette Bening performance. It might be the closest she's ever gotten to an Oscar in her career. She's had several nominations. The Kids Are All Right in 2010 was a pretty significant one for her. I think American Beauty should have been the win for Annette Bening, so she's going to get my pick. It's the only time I'm going to give any love to American Beauty, but I think Annette Bening is terrific in that movie. I'm always in her side, so she's going to get my win. Okay, Damon, we're going to go over to you on this one. Who are your nominees and your winner?
Yeah, so I had the same issue you had in terms of connecting with performances in this category, and there are some really good ones, but there wasn't enough for me to really get behind. So honorable mentions: Carrie-Anne Moss, Matrix, really good, but I didn't feel the performance was enough to give a nomination for. I still think it was a good performance, and obviously the physicality of what she puts into it is amazing. She's probably the heart of the movie. I thought Winona Ryder was very good in Girl Interrupted. I liked what she did in that role. I think she held the film together really well for a lead actress to drive the narrative forward with her performance, and also kind of a character that you're not really supposed to like. I'd say she's troubled, but she's still the protagonist. I think she's got a lot going on there, and I did enjoy her performance. Cameron Diaz in Being John Malkovich. I don't know if maybe Catherine Keenan. I don't know. I'm not sure if she could have been supporting actress. Either way, she deserves a bit of love. The one that I was going to give a bit of love to, and I kind of see where you're coming from, Seth, but I still think the Blair Witch Project has got something in it. But Heather Donahue in the Blair Witch Project. Now, the only reason I didn't give her a nomination was because the way they made the movie was not traditionally driven with script, and her fear is pretty genuine. I think she's just probably kind of lost it a bit. The snot going out as she's filming herself, and she's very annoying. But I think to give her an Oscar for this would be a bit twee, and I don't think it quite makes sense. I will say on the Blair Witch Project, I didn't talk about this. I still think it's a good movie, but I think Seth's got a point. I don't feel the need to keep revisiting it. I don't think I'll watch it again for a long time. I think there's been more interesting found footage movies made since. The thing about the Blair Witch Project is it's the film as a whole, the marketing of it, the story of the making of the movie, and the mythology that they added to it, and that we were idiots in 1999 and went, oh, this is a real movie about people getting killed. Oh, like idiots. We were all idiots back. This is a big takeaway I should have put earlier. In 1999, the majority of the world were idiots because we believed the snuff movie made it to the theaters. Stupid.
Yep.
So yeah, apologies.
There was no internet to verify.
No.
So it was just like someone was like, "This is real," and you were like, "Oh my god!"
Kids, if you tell kids this now, they're like, "Are you stupid? Like, why would they why would they make this amount of money off a film where 3 people were killed? You're idiots." So yeah, embarrassingly, I think it's of its time, the Blair Witch. I still think it's a very good marker for found footage horror movies. I think it will always be talked about, and I still think it's valid. I just feel I don't think I'll need to watch it again for a long, long time. Anyway, my nominations, I digress. I will go for, in my list, I'll go for Janet McTeer, Tumbleweeds I had as well, Andrew. What stunned me most, have you guys ever seen Ozark?
Yes.
A little bit.
Janet McTeer is in Ozark, and she plays a pretty big character. And I had to go back and look at it again and go,
Is she the wife of the main bad guy? Oh, I love her.
Genuinely, like it's like
I
incredible.
love her in Ozark.
Oh no, she's not. Sorry, not the wife of the. Oh well, actually, sorry. I think she's the lawyer. I know who you're talking about. Actually.
Oh,
sorry,
okay.
not,
I love her too.
Yeah, sorry.
The lawyer's also great.
Yeah, I was confusing the characters. I'm butchering Ozark here. Brilliant TV show. But yeah,
really
she plays
good show.
the legal, the go between. And I was watching it again. Going, this is the same person. Like it's a cheap thing, but when you see a character, it's why I love Gary Oldman. But like when I was younger, I used to I'd watch movies, and about 10 times Gary Oldman. Sorry to go off on about a male in a female category. I'm such a cliche, and please hate me for it. But when you many times, I'd watch, is that the same person? And I did the same thing with Janet McTeer, and I was like, that's incredible, and it's such an interesting role, and maybe the movie. I'm not sure. I'm the same with you, Andrew. The movie kind of was breezy. It kept me going, and I didn't know where it was going, but I was enjoying the journey I was on. And I don't know if I learned a huge amount from it, but her performance, that kind of person running away from her problems, never wanting to settle, just almost not struggling to kind of grow up in the world, but still being kind of the life and soul of the party as well. She played that character. That's a human being character. I felt like she was real. I felt like she was someone you've met. It wasn't a big movie performance, so I wanted to give her some love. So I'm the same as you, Janet McTeer. Another one that really surprised me was I'm going to say this, and this was a film I'd never seen before. You put on your list, Andrew. I'd never heard of it. Was Emily the Quen for Rosetta, which the film. I mean, it is dark. I don't. Seth, did you get a chance to watch this at all? Rosetta.
I did.
I found her performance. It was troubling and brilliant and just horrifying and what's the other word? She's fierce, and she's putting herself out there, but she's horrible with the way she does it. She kind of shits on people to get to where she wants to be, and then she pushes people away that are trying to help. Just a proper, again, rounded performance. Something I was really surprised at after I watched it. I was like, that is a performance that will stay with me and for a long, long time. So I wanted to give her a bit of love. I was surprised she didn't get much love in that anyway. I'll go for in my bit. Now, this is, again, the crossover. In terms of lead actress, but she's a supporting character, for me, Helena Bonham Carter in Fight Club. That's where I've gone, Andrew, with it, because she's amazing in this film. For all the things you said earlier, I can't really do any better than what you said. She's brilliant. The fact that she pulls off, for you guys, you're American, so you would know better than me, but does she pull off the American accent really well?
I think so.
Ooh, that's a good question.
I think she does, but I'm English.
I think so. Yeah.
What would it? Whereabouts would she be from? Is it just like a generic kind of LA?
She's
type?
not really pulling a specific dialect.
See,
that I can.
You got here fast.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm selling clothes.
And that's it. But it is, believe it, I didn't realize. I think it might be one of the first films I'd seen her, and I didn't realize she was English. Like, this happens to me a lot. Like, Idris Elba pulled that off when I was watching The Wire years ago, and I was like, this guy's English. Like, huh? Like, totally, like, and I always think to myself, as English, we go over there, like, we go over to America, and we come out with our American accents. And I think, do you guys actually, because I can do an American accent. I don't know where I'm doing it from, but like, it's.
Please do right now.
I couldn't possibly do an American accent right now. That'd be too much for me to do.
Very good.
I don't know where I'm going with that. Like, that's.
Yeah. See, that's when we do accents from England. Someone's always like, "Oh no, that's wrong because you're doing a West London," and I'm like, "Look, dude, I don't know what you're talking about,
where's
right?"
this? For such a small country, we've got so many nuanced little accents that are so different. Like,
Well,
you know,
Yes.
So on the accent thing, and not to bring another man into this, but it is tangentially related in Brad Pitt. Andrew, earlier you said when you close your eyes and you think of that like quintessential Brad Pitt performance, you probably think of Fight Club. I think of Snatch, and I think of his performance and his accent. So what is that?
right. I mean, again, the risk of Andrew's podcast topping 4 hours, but let's do this.
We're doing it.
And we're doing, again, apologies. Especially female listeners, I really apologize. We're going off on one about a male character here. We are terrible human beings, but we are also men, so, forgive us for that. So basically, in England, there is, and I've got to really be careful that I don't get cancelled by saying this. So there's a community of what we would call travellers that don't have an abode as such, that tend to be of Irish descent, that literally are everywhere, all over the UK, and they will park up. When I was a kid, they'd kind of find a bit of land, like my local park where I grew up. Like we'd play football, soccer, we'd play every day. We'd go to the park, and one day we turned up. There's about 10 caravans, just like you'd see in Snatch, but they were on our park. We were like, "What's going on here? Like these guys are literally parked in the 2 trees that we shoot the goals at." And they were just, and that's when I was like, "Mom, who are these people?" And the thing is, I'm not going to say the term because I might get cancelled. Well, they call them in Snatch, they call them pikeys, which I'm fairly sure is derogatory. I'd never heard of that term. I think it's a southern term for travellers, but what used to be called is gypsies, or if you're going to be really derogatory, they'd call them jippos, and it's not. I'm only saying that because do not say that, because that's not the correct terminology, because there are a lot of lovely people, but essentially the thing in Snatch was they were associated with organised crime. And if you guys have watched the TV show The Gentleman as well, they have those characters appear a bit more. What was the one you said, Andrew? Sorry.
They're in Peaky Blinders too. Like they're sort of like gypsy people.
Yeah, you're right. That's. But it's Irish, but it's weird. It's exactly what Jason Statham says. It's Irish, but it's not Irish. It's like a really fast, nuanced Irish accent is a lot slower and a lot more clearer normally than that. And a traveller accent seems to be really like muddled into that. But the fact that Brad Pitt came over to England and nailed that, we were all stunned. We were like, this is like a really niche thing that no one's ever seen. Like, and he nailed it. I was just like, I can't. If you remember, we have, whenever you do have you ever done the 2000 episode, Andrew? Is that coming?
That'll be next year.
That'll be next year. Just remember, when Brad Pitt appears, he's taking a dump behind a car. That's the first thing he's doing.
All right.
You don't realize he's doing it. He's behind a car, and then then he appears pulling his trousers up. That's the first thing he does.
Nice.
Anyway, we were talking about women, so let's talk about.
I'm excited because I know I'm going to be able to clip your American accent into a nice little reel, so that makes me happy.
There you go.
That's not an American
accent. Should I follow up with a British one?
Go for it.
I'm so good at those. That's a staple. Damon, a staple of our show, Movie Friends, is that at the end of each episode, I read a 5-star review in a different accent. And if there's nothing appropriate for me to do from the film itself, I'll just go back to a British one. And I can't do accents like at all. Like I don't do them well. So
Seth, why don't you hold on? Seth, why don't you do your nominees in a British accent?
Oh
no, God, that's way too much. That's way too long. Yeah.
Where was I? I was talking about Helena Bonham Carter. That's it. Yeah, sorry. Because she was doing an amazing American accent, according to me. Yeah. So. Yes, apologies, Helena, if you are listening. We've just started talking about Brad Pitt in a different movie. So very insulting. Helena Bonham Carter is amazing in this, and like we said before, she holds the movie together. And without her performance, because we know from the information we have earlier in the movie of Fight Club that she ruined everything, and that needs to really work for what then happens in the preceding couple of hours of the movie. And she's sexy, but she's kind of filthy as well. Like, you don't want to get near her, but you do. And she's a bit of a car wreck, but she's also really charismatic. And then, she's just she's just everything. When she's on screen, she's just amazing. And I've since then I've seen her in lots of films. I've never seen her come close to this. Not that she's not a good actress. You said The King's Speech earlier, Andrew. Yeah, I was like, okay, but it's not Fight Club, is it? Like she's amazing in Fight Club, and I love her in that. My last two nominees. Annette Bening, American Beauty, for all the reasons you said, Andrew. I don't need to draw upon it again too much, but she's really funny. I think is what probably doesn't get a lot of credit for. She's very funny, but very tragic at the same time, and shows a character that's a person that's just lost her way, lost her zest for life, and she finds it again. And that, to put that on screen again and make it believable and not too over the top is really, really glorious. She gives a great performance, and I'll never forget the end scene, without giving too much away, where she just sort of collapses into some clothes, and I'm sure that she just did that. It felt improvised, it felt of the moment, and it's brilliant, and it broke me. And my final nomination, I'll go straight into it. This is the one that I'm going to give the Oscar to, and I don't think I could look any further than it. I think it's one of the most powerful performances I've ever seen, and it was a really brave performance, and she gave absolutely everything to this part. And this is where I think I agree with the Academy. Hilary Swank, Boys Don't Cry. Did she win for this?
She did.
She did. I can't look further than that. And I think, I don't know. From my point of view, I think it was brilliantly done. I think it was very sensitively handled, and I felt it was about the character. It wasn't trying to be anything to do with trans representation as such. It was trying to. It was a true story, It was trying to show the problems and the heart of this character. It wasn't trying to, and it did do it. Worked, obviously works for that community, but I don't think it was made because of that. I think it was made because this character's story needed to be told, and Hilary Swank went everywhere with this movie, and I felt for her, and it's heartbreaking to see what she put herself through to make this character work and give everything to it. And it was a career defining performance, because ever since then, after that she was given loads of big parts. Doesn't seem to be as much these days. I don't know if that's a choice, but she became A-list. This is an actress that is fearless, and she can put herself in parts that some actresses might have not gone to, because to me, what she ends up having to do on it's uncomfortable, but it needed to be uncomfortable because the film demanded it, and it broke my heart. And that was another film I'd watched back in, I reckon, 2002, and I thought, okay, I'll go and revisit this. And yeah, it broke me a bit, and it broke a lot of the characters in the film as well. And yeah, Hilary Swank gets my vote.
I think that movie holds up incredibly well, having also not revisited it for X number of years. It was a long time between watches, and I really enjoyed it. A couple of quick notes before I go over to Seth. I'm with Seth on the Blair Witch Project. I don't think that movie is very good. At least it doesn't work for me. It's got a really low return on investment. Every time I go back to it, I find it less interesting, less scary, less creative. It's just, I don't think it's holding up well as time has passed. And then I couldn't do a lot of Ozark, gentlemen. I'm like 2 hours away from the Ozarks.
And okay.
I don't know if it's too authentic and it bothers me, or it's too far-fetched and it bothers me. Something about it just doesn't rub me the wrong way, because I've been to the Ozarks far too often in my life, and I kind of know those people, and it's just, that's where I am with Ozark.
Right.
All right.
Watch out for those poppy fields. That's all I'll say.
All right, let's see what Seth's got for his nominees and his winner.
Well, on Blair Witch Project, I will say, again, great that they made that money, great that they were that creative. Most terrifying final shot, if you know what I'm talking about, that freaks me out. So yeah, just wanted to say that as well. So this is for lead actress, right? This is where we're at?
Correct.
Okay, cool.
It's a whirlwind.
So for my honorable mentions, I'm going back to the well, man. The well of life and death with my Book of the Dead. I'm going to nominate Rachel Weisz from The Mummy. This is a more comedic role, but she is on fire in this movie. You might if you're listening to this and you're like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? I just got to say, like, can this type of movie ever be a pinnacle movie? And if it can, I think that The Mummy gets really close to that. And so she's great. She's phenomenal. If you haven't seen The Mummy in a while, I don't know why I'm talking about The Mummy so much, but I promise it's not just because I've watched it recently. She rules in it. She's great. She's daring. She's funny. She's got a lot to do, and she does it all really, really well. Other honorable mention would be Nicole Kidman in Eyes Wide Shut. I think that she's not in the movie a ton, but what she is in, she's incredible. She's so great. Her scene might be one of the scenes of the movie, and in a movie that's pretty darn near perfect, that's really saying something. I love everything. I've seen Eyes Wide Shut probably 25 times. I'm in the camp that thinks it's a very funny movie. The idea, for Kubrick to be like, hey, Tom Cruise, the world's sexiest man, wouldn't it be really funny if no matter what he did, he couldn't have sex? That's hilarious. And anyway, Eyes Wide Shut is great. Nicole Kidman. And then my other honorable mention would be Hilary Swank in Boys Don't Cry. I think that hours ago at this point, I guess we can now say, because we're in 2 hours and 30 minutes, Damon said, we should wait 5 years. And I also think that that's true. I think that we should take a look at what was said and where culture and society have gone, what has aged well, what has grown more important as time has gone on, and not just about like, oh, I just watched this and I'm really excited. Oh my gosh, this is the greatest film I've ever seen. But what is actually important? And I was really struck in, when you have a marginalized group of people, unfortunately, the path to normalcy and acceptance is often bathed in a lot of blood and pain and torment from the larger group. And in 1999, there was a lot of films that played gay panic as very comedic. Idle Hands is one of them, unfortunately, for 14-year-old Andrew. I just watched another film. It's a trauma release directed by Lloyd Kaufman called Terror Firmer. That film is a very interesting, I would say maybe perhaps nuanced look at handling the trans story in a B-C level slasher film. It's kind of interesting. But Hilary Swank giving this performance in this year and being awarded for it is, I think, something that is important in culture as a whole. So yeah, I thought she did quite well in this. So my nominees for Best Actress would be Kate Winslet in Holy Smoke. This is a Jane Campion film that I just watched recently and was totally blown away by her performance. The film overall makes some really interesting editing choices that I think could kind of fog the performance for viewers, but I thought she was awesome in it. Breaking the rules again, I'm going to nominate two actresses for the same film. This would be Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams as the two leads of Dick. This is one of the best comedies that I have ever seen. And again, I was so grateful to do this project because I'd never watched this movie before. And I was gobsmacked by how funny it was, how well written it was, how well directed it was. This is not the last time that Dick will appear on my lists. But Kirsten Dunst and Michelle Williams, if you want to see a great example of young people pulling off a, basically two-hander, think like Midnight Run and the chemistry that like De Niro has with, I can't believe I'm forgetting his name.
Charles
Grodin, right? Imagine that, but in like really, really young actors, and that's what they pull off in that movie. Laura Belmont from The War Zone. It is a harrowing performance. Tough. And again, she's quite young, but she rules. She rules in that movie. She's out acting Tilda Swinton. It's incredible. If you gain nothing else from this episode, watch The War Zone, okay? And Dick too, but yeah. And then Samantha Morton for Jesus' Son. Not for Sweet and Low Down, which was a fine movie, but she is awesome in Jesus' Son. She's playing opposite of... Oh no, I can't remember his name now. I have a real blind spot in my brain for names. Billy Crudup. And she's great. She's so heartbreaking. She's got such magnetism. And I'm glad that she's continued acting. I consider Samantha Morton to be one of the best character actors of like the last 30 years. And she's never gotten tons and tons of fame and acclaim and huge starring roles, but she keeps popping up in little things. She's awesome. And then my winner would be Emily Decanay from Rosetta. This is an unbelievable performance. I think that this was her first starring role. And if you haven't seen Rosetta, it's a very tough watch. It is confounding. I think in my Letterboxd review, I said, this movie was me saying, why is she doing this every 10 minutes? Kind of like at no moment can you guess what this character is going to do next. And you might start to think, oh, she's a bit of a scumbag. And then you're like, oh no, that's really not it at all. And then you're like, oh, she's a bit... And it's very layered. Your heart goes out to her, and then she breaks it, and then it goes out to her again. It is it's a very physical performance. Yeah, amazing. So she gets my best actress for sure.
I'm so happy that you went for that, because it was a revelation, that movie, to me. I was wow, like so many times, like you said, why is she doing this? Many don't do that. Don't do that.
Yes.
I must have said that so many times in the film. Like, why has she decided that was the best choice in that moment? Yeah, great.
Well, we got a great listener question. You go, Seth.
And without all the trappings of a huge, Hitchcock film with twists and turns and this and that, I also put in my review, like, this is proof that all you need to make a good movie is like good acting. You need a little wagon to sell waffles. You know what I mean? Like, what they do with almost nothing is an inspiration and should be an inspiration to filmmakers. Making something out of nothing. And that's what she's doing in that movie. Amazing.
Yeah, one of the reviews, or one of the listener questions we got was about just like, how would Rosetta have landed in today's day and age with the Academy being more international? The film obviously won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival that year. I think Rosetta, if it were made today, would stand a very good chance of being an awards contender. And Decanay would very much be in the conversation for a lead actress Oscar. Like, I think that movie would have landed significantly better in this time period. So
completely agree.
Glad you threw that out there. I just love this category too, to kind of highlight, like, I could watch 75, 100 movies any given month, and there's always going to be stuff I haven't gotten to or just haven't had the time to find. You threw out The War Zone, Jesus' Son, and Holy Smoke, 3 films that I have never seen before, and I've seen a lot of Jane Campion films. I haven't seen that one. So, like, every time I do one of these episodes, I'm always walking away with multiple films that I get to add to my watch list, and that's just a cool thing. So I'm glad that you kind of found your own way into 1999 and found these films that I never would have had the chance to stumble upon. So that's really cool. It gives me some homework to do after the fact. Good stuff. All right, so we got 3 nominees for this category when we get to social media. You've got my pick, Annette Bening in American Beauty. You've got Seth's pick, Emily Decanay in Rosetta. And then Damon and the Academy are together on this one. They've got Hilary Swank in Boys Don't Cry. All right,
Very
we're getting to
nice.
Best Actor now. This one's gonna
Wait.
Yeah.
Since we're halfway through, should we stop and all sing "Save Me" by Amy Mann?
Well, I'm looking out for the frogs. Yeah. They're gonna come down on me. Yeah.
Hey, movie lovers, this is Kyle, host and producer of the Movie Wars podcast. We're not just a movie review podcast. There's plenty of those. On Movie Wars, a panel of stand-up comedians blends humor with deep film analysis using their unique war card system to grade movies across key categories. Each episode delivers thoughtful insights and spirited debate, offering a fresh comedic take on film analysis. New episodes drop every Thursday on all podcasting platforms and YouTube. Deeply researched, gut-wrenchingly funny, you'll love Movie Wars.
All right, this category is going to be something. So let's get to Best Actor. We've got a big elephant in the room here, but we'll talk to that. So the Academy's nominees in Best Actor in 1999 were Denzel Washington for The Hurricane, Russell Crowe for The Insider, Richard Farnsworth for The Straight Story, Sean Penn for Sweet and Lowdown, and the Academy gave top honors that night to Kevin Spacey for his part in American Beauty. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to tackle this thing first out of the gate. I feel like it's only fair as host to address the Kevin Spacey of it all to begin with, and then I'll let you guys jump in if you want to or not. But I'll throw myself out there first.
Andrew can get cancelled first. This is his show.
There you go. I have some thoughts. All right. So I'll really quickly throw out some honorable mentions. Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. I just love Keanu. Damon, I said on your show when I did a guest spot a few months back, Keanu's like my movie hero. I just love the person he is behind the scenes. So got to shout out Keanu, even though people think he's a bad actor. That's there across the bear. Russell Crowe in The Insider was in contention. Matt Damon in The Talented Mr. Ripley was in contention. Here are my 5 gentlemen for lead actor 1999. First and foremost, I've got Tom Cruise for Eyes Wide Shut. Second, I've got Edward Norton for Fight Club. Third nominee is going to go to Jim Carrey for Man on the Moon. Fourth nominee is going to go to Haley Joel Osment for The Sixth Sense. Again, I said I'm going to manipulate the categories. I think he is the lead character in that film, regardless of Bruce Willis's impact in it. And then my fifth and final nominee is going to go to Richard Farnsworth for The Straight Story. Shout out to him for what he does in that film. For the record, I've got Kevin Spacey ranked 13th out of the 34 men I had in this category. All right, here's my hot take Kevin Spacey takeaway. I used to think that Kevin Spacey was a brilliant actor. I really did. I thought everything that he did was unbelievable. Obviously, we live in a different world now with Kevin Spacey and what we know about him. There's an HBO Max 2-part documentary series on him that I have taken the time to watch, and it sort of changed my entire perception of what I thought I knew about Kevin Spacey and what I do know. My new take on Kevin Spacey is I actually don't think he's a great actor in film, because I think a lot of what he's doing in film is playing a sociopath and a deranged person, and I think that's kind of who he actually is in real life, and I think that I don't think he's doing a lot of acting in these movies that everyone claims he's a great actor in. I think the actual acting that Kevin Spacey's been doing for the bulk of his life is what he's been doing in public and the persona that he's built for himself. I think he's a very good actor was a very good actor at convincing people that he was something that he was not. And so for me personally, I have to look at everything with Kevin Spacey on screen in a different lens. I just think he was basically playing himself. A lot of his roles were villainous asshole characters who just were not good people. And so that's kind of where I stand with Kevin Spacey. Is I just don't think he's a great actor on screen. He's sort of come back over the last couple of years in some films that are much more like straight to streaming and stuff, and it's kind of highlighted he's not able to sort of capture that same magic. And I just don't think, like I said, I don't think Kevin Spacey is the great actor that I once thought. So that's my hot take. Take it, leave it, whatever. This one's going to go to the same gentleman that I gave the award to in supporting actor. It's going to go to Tom Cruise in Eyes Wide Shut. Now, I would have been fine giving Edward Norton the win. I would have been fine. I think Jim Carrey I'm sort of tired of just actors playing real people. It sort of feels like fodder now for just giving somebody an award. But I think Jim Carrey does a really brilliant job dissecting Andy Kaufman and portraying him, and he obviously went full method for it, and that's a whole other conversation I'm not going to get into right now. But I think Jim Carrey's really terrific in that film. I think what Haley Joel Osment does in The Sixth Sense for the age he was is revelatory. He's brilliant. Maybe tomorrow I wake up and I think Haley Joel Osment would get my win, but at the end of the day, I long for an era of Tom Cruise being comfortable playing different roles, different characters, testing himself. I think, to Seth's point, like, it's kind of funny to see him play this character that is so outside of what you would think Tom Cruise, this big star, would play. And there's a lot of false masculinity in it. And there's just like, he's just sort of a weak, cowering character who's like trying to like reach. I love Eyes Wide Shut. That film really resonates with me in a big way. And I think Tom Cruise is very important in that film. And so he's going to get my win. And I just wish we would get more Tom Cruise in acting performances instead of just him being a stunt guy these days.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get over next to Damon. Damon, who do you have? And you can address the Kevin Spacey of it all if you want.
I'm gonna have to. Yeah. Right. We'll come to that in a second. Unfortunately, we'll come to that in a second. Right. My honourable mentions are Russell Crowe for The Insider. It was very close to getting on the list. I really enjoyed what he did in that film. I didn't quite connect with the performance in the same way, but that was one of the films I revisited and it went up a notch watching it on a second viewing because I felt it was a tight thriller. It was really well put together, and I think Russell Crowe's performance was right on the money. This was pre-Gladiator, wasn't it? Was it?
Yeah, a year prior.
Yeah, so I feel like in England it came out not far off of when Gladiator came out. So I feel like in England he came that because he obviously had the Oscar buzz. Then Gladiator came out, and then Russell Crowe was just like superstar. Like, but yeah, Insider he's fantastic in. I wanted to give an honourable mention too because I shout out to my friend Alex Warwick who's been on our podcast, and Nicolas Cage. Like there's a lot of love for Nicolas Cage, for better or worse. But Bringing Out the Dead, I just wanted to give a little mention to him because I feel like he is really good in this film. It's a crazy movie, and Scorsese was messing about with a lot of different methods, and he was clearly trying to up his game. But I feel like Cage gave something to that part. He gave a man just sort of broken by the New York City paramedic scene. Like he gave energy to that performance that I don't think anyone else could have given the same level to. I always have a soft spot for Nicolas Cage, but he's an acquired taste, I'd say. But I do love Nicolas Cage. Keanu Reeves in The Matrix. I'll say this: he's not a bad actor by any means. I think he does the performances that are needed for the movie that he's making, and I think people need to look beyond the big showy performances that people tend to resonate with. A good actor or actress is someone that betters the movie they're in and for the enjoyment of the audience, not so that they can be seen to be acting and doing big performances. And I'll come to that when I come to my nomination, that like there are performances and there are performances that make a movie work. Now, sometimes you can have both, where you see a character really lifting off screen, but a really good actor is someone that makes the piece of work they're in better, not because they're dominating the scene. I think Keanu Reeves, this is my hot take, Keanu Reeves is a very good actor because he's a team player, and everything he's in, he does for the betterment of the actors around him. Carrie-Anne Moss, Lawrence Fishburne, Hugo Weaving would not be anywhere near as good if it wasn't Keanu Reeves in this movie. And that is the key. Like, he is a perfect supporting player to everyone. He is the lead character in this. I'm still not giving him my nomination because I don't think the performance was... it wasn't quite as out there, and I feel really bad, man. When I come to one of my nominations after what you've just said, I feel like I'm going to get cancelled for my podcast. But hey, we'll have words about what we need to cut about after this later. And yeah, I'll give quick shout outs. Matt Damon, talented Mr. Ripley. Haley Joel Osment, The Sixth Sense, brilliant. Shame his career is not gone on to new heights, but he's still relatively young. Who knows? Haley Joel Osment may come back with a big performance. I found Denzel Washington's performance in The Hurricane just a bit cliched, and it's nowhere near my top, but he is good in it. But I just feel like it was just one of those movies that I never will watch again. And Philip Baker Hall and Jason Robards in Magnolia, I think, deserved a little bit of love as well. My 5 are, I'm going to go Richard Farnsworth for The Straight Story. He's just genius in this role. He gives a lot of heart, a determined performance, and a David Lynch movie with a massive heart, a real heartwarming story about someone just traveling and meeting some wonderful people across America. I was stunned even at a young age that this was a David Lynch movie, but Richard Farnsworth on second viewing drives it with his performance, and he no pun intended, he drives the film across America. Straight Story, brilliant. And it was such a shame he passed away, didn't he? I think before the nomination came across. And Seth's not going to agree with this one. I think Bruce Willis is very good in The Sixth Sense. I think he gives a very, very controlled performance. So he gets one of my noms as well. The film is dominated by the big thing that happens in the film. And to be honest, if you've managed to get this far in your life and not know what happens in The Sixth Sense, more power to you. Please go and watch the movie immediately so that some idiot doesn't spoil the moment in it for you. I think Bruce Willis, you've got to remember at the time, the sort of stuff he was doing, this was a really different type of performance that he was trying to put across. It was very, how's the word? He was very pushed back. He was trying to be something. Again, this is going back to my Keanu Reeves argument. Bruce Willis's performance allows Haley Joel Osment to shine. And even though he's kind of the lead actor in it, I think Bruce Willis really does something in this film that he's not done very often in his career. Give a really calm, quiet performance that's very introspective, very non-showy. I just find there's a lot of heart in this film, and I think he drives a lot of that. He's really got the performance down, and it's a shame Shyamalan's probably never quite hit the heights of The Sixth Sense, but he did elicit one of Bruce Willis's finest ever performances, and now we now kind of know what's happened with Bruce Willis. I think people should go back and see some more of his films, because I think he's a really good actor, and again, he does what is needed. You could question a lot of his films, certainly in his last 10 to 15 years, but I think weren't great. But I wonder if that was because he was, struggling with health, maybe, and maybe that was probably starting to come through a little bit. So Bruce Willis would get another nomination. I'm dancing around this. Sean Penn for Sweet and Low Down. I'm not a fan of Sean Penn. I don't like him as a person. I don't think he's a very nice person. But I'm sure he cares. But like in Sweet and Low Down, he's very funny, and his performance just lifts off the screen. It's also a Woody Allen movie, and I know that's also problematic these days, but that is what it is. It's a really entertaining piece of work from Sean Penn, and when he wants to, he can really lift off the screen what he's trying to do. So I'd give Sean Penn mine. Sweet and Low Down. I'm good. All right, here we go. Right, so I'm going to give a nomination to Kevin Spacey, despite Andrew's very well thought out and very good argument. But I've committed now. I've already put that in the list. I haven't seen the documentary, and I know the story of Kevin Spacey and everything that goes around it. And I am going to caveat this, and this isn't me wimping out. I do wonder. I'm going to give him the nomination because I do think the performance was really interesting, and at the time very powerful and really controversial because of the things that were happening in it. I do wonder if the choices that were made in the movie, given the level of power he would have had at that point, even in Hollywood, and the type of person he was it his choice? Was Chris Cooper's turn as a character influenced by anything else going on in the movie? I don't know, because I've seen things in House of Cards where there was some really odd tonal shifts in sex scenes. And I'm going to face that head on. And I just wonder, because I can't remember you mentioned Chris Cooper earlier. He is really good in that. It was odd, like, and I look back at, but it kind of worked in the moment. But the thing that troubles me with the American Beauty is I don't know what to make of the choices that were made in that film. So I'm going to give him a nomination, but with the caveat that I haven't seen this documentary, Andrew, and I've got a feeling that I may change my mind. But I'm going to stand on it. I'm just going to put it out there, because at the end of the day, the guy hasn't been yet acquitted of anything. He's been accused of a lot of things, and I don't know if you guys saw the Piers Morgan interview he did a while ago. Like, it was very cringeworthy, but the guy deserves, I suppose, his moment to talk about the things that have been accused of him. But it didn't come across amazing. And then the Guy Pearce reaction recently.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know how to attack this one. Kevin Spacey is a really interesting figure in Hollywood, and I do wonder the same, Andrew. But I'd probably need a bit more to go through to watch and study about the man, and maybe more things will come out. So I'm prepared to change my nomination, but I'm going to stand by it now. I think his performance was really good in the film, and I think American Beauty, I think, as an English guy that doesn't know a lot about America, because I've not been over very often, I thought that was a good film, and I watched it and I was, this, America, this is happening, middle-age crisis. There was a lot of this sort of going on. Who am I? What's my space in the world? Where do I sit? And that performance, that character was interesting. But I can't help but think, it's the one that troubles me the most, because I'm not sure what to make of it now. I really am not, but I can't not give him the nomination, because that's what I thought at the time. And I'm not, but you made a very compelling argument. So I'm sat here guiltily going, Kevin Spacey can have a nomination. That being said, I'm not going to give him the award. Quickly move on. I'm going to give the award to, and like I said to you earlier, I think a movie has to be made better by a performance that's in it. And because of that, I'm going to give my award to Edward Norton in Fight Club. And the reason is it's the recognizable role. No one's going to want to play Jack in, pretend to be Jack at fancy dress. Although that'd be quite interesting, actually, a few specks of blood on your shirt and a couple of black eyes. But Edward Norton, who nowhere near the levels of Kevin Spacey by any means whatsoever, nothing on the same page, but he's got a reputation, it seems, of being a bit hard to work with, and maybe not the collaborative worker that everyone wants him to be. But I think his work in Fight Club is extraordinary, and without his performance, Tyler Durden's character doesn't work as well. So I'm going to give my Oscar to Edward Norton, because I think without him, Fight Club doesn't. Again, this is the thing, like the performances, it relies on these people. It's such a crazy film. I'm going to come to this a bit more later, but Fight Club is mental. It's absolutely crazy that this film was made in this way, and you need actors in it that are going to go to places and fully get behind it. And Edward Norton exemplifies that. But it wasn't the showy role, because that was Brad Pitt's. He needed to be the guy that you didn't want to be because you wanted to be Brad Pitt. And that is a really interesting role to play. And yeah, Edward Norton, I just think the bit where he smashes himself around his boss's office is just iconic, like just incredible. And he's got this really strong wit that just seems to just pour out of him. Just some of the best line in it, which is dark, is when he says to Marla, no, I want bowel cancer. And then he turns to the person and kind of does a double take. And I just think that's hilarious, because he knows what he's doing. But there's bits Edward Norton does in that movie that I don't think I've seen anyone else do. Yeah, great performance. The Kevin Spacey thing, though.
I think you did as well as one can expect to do with the Kevin Spacey bit. So you had teased in our little group chat, or maybe it was just one privately to me, that you were going to maybe go with a crazy pick because of the GOAT pick that happened earlier this year. I honestly thought you were going to pick Edward Norton in supporting as like being Brad Pitt. I thought you were going to go like way off the wall with it and sort of do this meta thing, and I was like, okay,
yeah.
So I kind of had it right that you were going to go with Edward Norton.
I'm too predictable.
Really quickly, Sean Penn. I'm a fan of Sean Penn as an actor, but I'm going to put this little marker down. If you're listening now, listen in about 4 months' time when we get to 2001. I have some I Am Sam Sean Penn thoughts that are driving me up a freaking wall already.
Sure.
And then really quickly with Kevin Spacey, his acceptance speech was insane. I had never like seen it in full, or I certainly hadn't remembered it. He flat out said he mentioned his friends pointing out his worst qualities in him all the time, and like the camera kind of pan around to just like blank stares, and it sort of felt like he was dropping clues about his life at the time that like none of us were privy to, and it was just this weird awkward moment where he was sort of like acknowledging his darkness and his skeletons. I don't know, it was a very strange situation.
Andrew, can I do something uncouth? I've decided right, can I get rid of Kevin Spacey as last minute?
Sure.
I'm going to give it, instead, I'm going to bump Kevin Spacey. You've made so many compelling arguments. I think I probably got this one wrong. I'm going to put Keanu Reeves in for The Matrix because of the exact reasons I said earlier. I think, and also just to piss people off that don't think he's a good actor, go back and watch the performance again. He's amazing. I'm getting rid of Spacey. You've convinced me. I'm coward. I've gone against myself, but I just think I have been wrestling with it for a while, but
now, I will admit, I'm going to have a lot harder time with the Kevin Spacey dilemma when we get to like the 7-year or The Usual Suspects year, just because those performances are certainly more notable in my mind. But that I'll have to cross that bridge when I get to it. Yeah, let's go over to Seth. Does he have any Kevin Spacey in this, or where is he going to end up?
Sure. I mean, as a young person growing up in the 90s and early 2000s, Kevin Spacey was in the movies that I thought were very, very important and were teaching me things about life. Life of David Gale. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one. American Beauty. There were even. I mean, now this movie is widely hated by everyone, but K-Pax, right? K-Pax is a lot of philosophizing between a patient and a doctor, and it's at least exploring ideas. Now, I haven't visited K-Pax in quite some time, but I can tell you 13-year-old Seth thought that was like a very, very deep movie. And yeah, I mean, as on him in this performance, I think it's fine. I think it's a fine performance. This time around watching it, this was one of the movies that I had seen before, but I rewatched for this one because I was like, this one, Best Picture, I need to be a little bit more familiar. I agree with both of you on Annette Bening. I think that she's very funny, but has a few moments that are very, very devastating. The clothes scene towards the end, when she doesn't sell the house after preparing for it and motivational speaking her way to selling it. I think that she's really good in it. Spacey's performance, I think, for me this time around was just so tied to his character. And his character is all based on, doesn't it suck to have a wife? What if you had a job you didn't like? And I'm like, yeah, dude. Oh, no, you work in an office building 9 to 5 and you live in what I would consider to be a mansion? And this is unfortunately, like, as time has progressed and all of those things are now seen as luxuries, that it's like, and then when partway through the movie, he pulls a Edward Norton in Fight Club and blackmails his boss and gets all this money and then goes out and gets a second job. I'm like, so he has 2 incomes now? Why do I feel bad for this guy? Anyway, so his performance is more tied to, like, I just want to punch this dude. Like, I want to punch his character in the throat and be like, hey, man, you need to wake up and maybe appreciate your life a little bit more. You're married to Annette Bening, and I'm supposed to believe that's a bad thing. This is Princess Diaries level of, like, isn't she ugly? Isn't this guy's life horrible? Oh no, what if you had a daughter who was going through things? God. please. He's playing with a freaking RC car. This is a grown man. Like, I'm sorry. I have no empathy for this character whatsoever. We can all identify with midlife crisis and questioning, your role in society, the struggle of modern life. I just think other filmmakers do a much better job of dissecting that and putting it on display in a character that we care about, much like Emily Decanay in Rosetta. She's also dealing with money and jobs, and it's just better. It's much, much better. Anyway, that's how I feel about the Kevin Spacey thing. My honorable mentions for Best Actor would be Harvey Keitel in Holy Smoke. It's an interesting, very interesting role. It's another movie where every few minutes he's doing stuff and you're like, wow, I did not see that coming. Very, very interesting. And Harvey Keitel rules all the time. Never seen him in something that I didn't like or almost love. My next nominee, folks, he's doing it again. He's going back. Brendan Fraser in The Mummy. And I know this seems like, if you don't know me, if you're listening to, Andrew's podcast, and you're like, who is this guy? This is really not my bread and butter. Like big blockbuster movies. I'm not a big Spielberg guy. I'm not a big James Cameron guy. I'm really not. But again, if we're just going to straight up say horror movies can't be nominated, comedies can't be nominated, action movies, like these movies, these are not films to be taken seriously. If we're going to take that stance, fine. If we're not going to take that stance, the cast of The Mummy deserves to be recognized for making an incredible action film in the year 1999 on the precipice of the CGI, overtaking everything. And I mean, as evidenced by The Mummy Returns, where you get the worst CGI ever in The Scorpion King. There's a lot to love in this movie. Brendan Fraser, great. Should have won for this, not The Whale. Forrest Whitaker in Ghost Dog. I love Jim Jarmusch. I think his films are so boring and so inaccessible. And I love that. I think at this point I've seen all of his narrative features. He's done a few things that I haven't seen that are like shorts or concert films or whatever. And I think Ghost Dog is close to his most accessible, and I just loved hanging out with Forrest Whitaker for this long. I'm sure he's much better in like The Last King of Scotland, but here I wanted to be around this guy. I wanted to hear him talk. I wanted to watch him move around, and yeah, absolutely loved him. So then my 5 nominees would be Richard Farnsworth in The Straight Story. Absolutely incredible. Just, again, no trappings. It's just stand on this stage and make me cry, and he can. Pretty amazing. Jim Carrey in Man on the Moon. We did an episode on Man on the Moon last year. We focused on the films of Jim Carrey for a whole month, which was crazy. And there's a lot to be said about whether or not Jim Carrey is actually portraying Andy Kaufman, or if he's doing a version of Andy Kaufman, or if he's doing Jim Carrey as Andy Kaufman. If you're a Kaufman head, that's up to you to decide. I don't think he's doing full Andy, but what he is doing is still good. Like we can say it's not an accurate portrayal. It's still a great movie and a great performance. Denzel Washington in The Hurricane.
Seth, can I just ask you? Sorry to cut you. Did you watch the documentary on Jim Carrey about?
Yes,
because that adds another layer, doesn't it, of what he was doing in that film?
Yeah, I did not think. I don't think that Jim came out looking the greatest after that documentary. No.
Mainly, but his own admission. I think he came out of it almost going, "I was a jerk," during the making of this film. Yeah. Like he more or less said that.
Yeah. Well, I think you mentioned Nick Cage. Nick Cage had a period of time where he talks about where he says the exact same thing earlier in the 90s. He went through that and he came out of it and was like, oh, okay, that's not what acting is. It shouldn't all be about me and being weird and crazy. I should just show up and do work. I think that this is the time period where Jim is kind of, he's had this massive success. Andrew, have you done 1994 yet?
I did last July.
Was it just Jim Carrey episode?
He didn't get as much mention as I thought he would.
Okay, all right. But yeah, what I say is I don't need for actors to be my priests and politicians. I need for priests and politicians to be those things. So Jim Carrey can be a weirdo dude. I don't care. If he's giving a good performance and not hurting anybody, he can be a weirdo. Who cares? And then, yeah, Denzel Washington, just, again, one of the greatest actors of all time. Definitely one of the top actors of this generation. The Hurricane doesn't get a lot of love, and I think it's because of the editing of that movie, quite frankly. But I enjoy it. I think about him whenever I'm exercising. I think about Denzel in his prison cell beating up his mattress, I think it's... I fully understand people saying The Hurricane isn't a great movie, but I think it's a good performance. And then number 4 would be Billy Crudup in Jesus' Son. One of Crudup's defining features is his eyebrows. They do this odd thing in that film where they kind of like almost shave part of them, and it's so interesting how it makes him like a different person. He's doing comedy in that, and it's a film about drug addiction and this journey of sobriety and death and crime. It's a very hard sell to do as like a comedic performance, and he walks that line perfectly. It's a really, really great performance. Another example of probably not a great film, really good performance. And then who I'm going to award, I gave 2 options. And it might be controversial, and I don't know if I can award one person for 2 movies, or if you guys can help me determine which one he should win for. But depending on how you feel about Magnolia, whether or not there is a lead or not, I would give Best Actor to Tom Cruise for Magnolia and Eyes Wide Shut. If I can't do it for Magnolia, he gets it for Eyes Wide Shut. I think that these 2 roles are so powerful that they broke him as a human being. And he said, no more acting for the rest of my career. I'm sorry. All I can do is show up and be present with my body because my mind for acting is gone. Incredibly powerful performances. Eyes Wide Shut, as I already mentioned, I've seen probably 25 times. There is so much going on in there, and I don't think that you need to be like a huge Kubrick head and dissect every single scene. You just have to pay attention to the layers to what is happening in every single scene that he is in. It's hilarious. It's very funny. He puts himself in the hands of, the writing and the directing, and yeah, he's made a fool of over and over and over again. And I love it. It's incredible. So yeah, probably if we were to look at film history, right, and think about great performances, to have 2 in the same year, both of them on this level, I would guess that this would be like a top 10 film performance year of anyone. And I'm saying that completely just pulling it out of my butt and thinking about it right now. But I would be curious to see if anyone else has ever had a better 1-2 punch in a year, other than, of course, Jim Carrey in 1994.
Yeah, that was the main reason why I had to put him as the winner for both categories. I just thought like 99 was in the conversation for best single acting years ever by one person. He basically sacrificed his marriage with Kidman for the amount of time that they were on that set.
Which you shouldn't do. Don't do that.
Right, yes.
Nobody should lose their family over an acting role, even if it is for Stanley Kubrick.
But you're right, though. I think that did break his brain that year because he has not been the same since.
Nope. And for your, Andrew, for your polling and voting and statistics and all that stuff, I don't want to upset the apple cart. Just put him in for Eyes Wide Shut for Best Actor for me. But know in your hearts, listeners, it's for both roles.
Yeah, so disregard Seth's supporting actor vote and give it to me for Tom Cruise for Magnolia.
No. Delroy Lindo definitely deserves it.
No, absolutely. Okay, so that's really good. We've got 3 options when we get to social media for this particular category. Seth and I both have Tom Cruise for Eyes Wide Shut. Damon's got Edward Norton for Fight Club, and the Academy has Kevin Spacey for American Beauty. So we will leave it to you on the Kevin Spacey situation, the listener. If you think he deserves the Oscar, by all means, vote for him. That is what it is, and we'll see what happens. All right, let's get to Best Director now. Here are the 5 people nominated in 1999 for this category. You've got Spike Jonze for Being John Malkovich. You've got Lasse Hallström for The Cider House Rules. Michael Mann for The Insider. M. Night Shyamalan for The Sixth Sense. And the crown that year was worn by Sam Mendes for his directorial effort on American Beauty. Seth, we're going to have you start this category off. Who do you have for director?
All right. Well, I mean, come on. M. Night Shyamalan. I don't want to deter the whole episode, but what a debut and what an entry to what I consider to be an illustrious career. He has stinkers, but we are the people who are living through his career. Hitchcock had stinkers that no one cares about because the ones that are great are so great. In future generations, they won't be talking about The Last Airbender. You know why? Because it won't be a bunch of children who grew up watching a cartoon who want to try to discredit one of the most important film directors of our generation. Sorry if that was a little heated, but genuinely, that's how I feel. Sorry, babies. Someone made a movie you didn't like. It doesn't mean that he sucks. Shyamalan rules. All that aside, my honorable mentions are...
Love it. I actually love that.
Ladies and gentlemen, can he do it for another time? He is! Stephen Sommers for The Mummy. Honorable mention. Big action set pieces. Big practical locations. Big CGI locations. Humor. Action. Romance. This movie has it all. Stephen Sommers for The Mummy. You're not getting a nomination, but he should be recognized. Spike Jonze for Being John Malkovich. It's just so creative, so funny, and so weird. I think it deserves. It's kind of gone away. You know, when I was younger, people talked about Being John Malkovich a lot, and I think it was because we didn't have a lot of weirdo indie movies, and Being John Malkovich, I think, helped open the floodgates, especially him being nominated Best Director for this. I think it helped usher in a new era of weird stuff, being more mainstream, and I think he's a big part of that. This is a really... No one could have seen this coming, but Andrew Fleming for Dick, again... It's a comedy, so if you don't think those should ever be nominated, then, you know, skip ahead. But wonderfully directed, and a near perfect film. I would say of 140 movies that I watched from 1999, this is a top 5 movie for me. So yeah, and then actual nominees, got to give it to Stanley Kubrick for Eyes Wide Shut. Horrible person, tortured human beings in order to create art, but he's dead now, so we don't have to feel bad about it, right? M. Night Shyamalan for The Sixth Sense, for all the reasons that I just said. He will be one of the greats after all of us people with sticks up our butts are dead, and yes, The Happening will be part of that. David Lynch for The Straight Story. I think that The Straight Story is one of my favorite Lynch films. I wore my directed by David Lynch shirt today in honor of him. The Straight Story stands out to me not just because I'm a fan of David Lynch, but because to me this is his way of saying, you think I have a style, you think I am a one-trick pony, you think I can only do this. I can do whatever I want. And something that I'm about to talk about a lot in the next category and in this one is you cannot buy style. You cannot buy someone who has an eye. And a very, very simple story. Obviously, you know, we know why it's called The Straight Story, but it's a very straightforward story. And the amount of style that he puts to almost nothing is incredible. Heartbreaking, hilarious, everything. David Lynch for The Straight Story. Next pick, I don't care. I'm breaking all the rules. This is for a documentary. And also a top 3, top 5 film of 1999. This is for Chris Smith for American Movie, which is one of the best documentaries ever made. One of the best movies about movie making and creative people ever. If you watch American Movie and you don't see tiny bits of yourself, people that you want to be and people that you never want to be, I feel bad for you. You need to go to therapy and open your heart because you are lying to yourself. Yes, Chris Smith for American Movie. And then the winners, that's right. Winners for Best Director for me is going to be Lana and Lily Wachowski for The Matrix. Prior to this, I have not put anyone in for The Matrix, and that's because I don't think that The Matrix is necessarily great because of the acting, but if you want a movie to close out the 1900s and, you know, be that swiveling door between the past and the future, it's The Matrix. And they balance so many elements, I think perfectly. They if you go back to Bound, which is another like near perfect, incredible film, again, you can't buy style. And The Matrix in other hands is a disaster. There's another movie from 1999. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's called The 13th. Let me actually double check this. Again, my the space in my brain for names is terrible. Let me just triple check. Yes, The 13th Floor by Joseph Rusnak. Have you guys seen this film?
Have not.
I think I might have done, but it's been a while.
The tagline is Question Reality. In Los Angeles, a wealthy man known as Mr. Fuller discovers a shocking secret about the world he lives in. Fearing for his life, he leaves a desperate message for a friend of his in the most unexpected place. This is the poster for The 13th Floor. Look familiar? It's about an alternate reality. It's got good actors in it. Gretchen Mol, Vincent D'Onofrio, Dennis Haysbert. Everybody loves Dennis Haysbert, right? Yeah. Same year, very similar premise, completely different movie. And science fiction has gained in popularity and respectability, and I think that The Matrix has a lot to do with that. So, best directors for me, Lana and Lily Wachowski.
I dig it, Seth. I dig it. All right, I'm going to go to mine. Damon, you're going to close us out for this category. Okay. Honorable mentions. As Seth said at the very beginning of this episode, you rattled off like 100 different directors this year who made films of consequence. So my honorable mention list could literally go until the end of time, but I'll just say Claire Denis, Beau Travail, Spike Jonze being John Malkovich, David Lynch, The Straight Story. I really wanted to get any of the three of those in there, but five's a really small number to get with so many great directorial efforts. So my 5 are Stanley Kubrick for Eyes Wide Shut. I think it's in the conversation for his best film. I love the direction of that film. Like Seth, I haven't seen it 25 times, but I've seen Eyes Wide Shut at least annually for a number of years. I love going back to that film. It's maybe weirdly one of his more rewatchable films for me. I
Absolutely
thoroughly enjoy it. Yeah, it's great stuff. David Fincher for Fight Club is going to get my second nomination. I just think that if you watch Fight Club, sure, somebody else could have adapted the book in a similar fashion, but it's got so much of the Fincher fingerprints on it, from the color motif to the editing style to the musical choices. There's just so much Fincher wrapped up in that film, so he's going to get a nomination. Third one's going to go to Paul Thomas Anderson for Magnolia. It's equal parts writing and directing, but what PTA does with that film, weaving so many different storylines intricately together and making the unbelievable feel real at the same time. He can kind of play with reality and spirituality in a grounded way. I love what PTA does with that film. It's not my favorite directorial performance from PTA. I'll shout out some other films on other years that'll probably do better, but it's one of the 5 best in '99 for me. Fourth nominee is going to go to Lily and Lana, the Wachowskis. What the two of them do with The Matrix is, I can't say any better than Seth did. Fifth nominee is going to go to M. Night Shyamalan for The Sixth Sense. I like M. Night Shyamalan. Whether it's Trap, which I think was a lot of fun, or Unbreakable, which is a phenomenal comic book movie, a Superman movie, if you will. There's so many different things that Shyamalan's done. And to your point, Seth, when all's said and done, people are only going to remember the great works by a lot of people. And I think people will look back on M. Night, and the Sixth Sense is his defining film. He came out of the gate hot. It's his peak for me. He's got to be in my 5. Respect to Kubrick for the masterpiece that was Eyes Wide Shut. David Fincher, respect to him. PTA, respect to him. M. Night Shyamalan, respect to him. There's one clear winner for Best Director, and it is the two of them. It's Lily, it's Lana, the Wachowskis.
Oh my God.
They changed the game for science fiction. They changed the game for action in such a way like nobody else could have pulled off what the two of them pulled off with The Matrix. It's mind-blowing to me, the way that they conceptualized that, the way they filmed it. It was such innovation at the time. It's the clear runaway winner for me, no doubt about it. The Wachowskis, slam dunk. All right, Damon, let's see if you zig or zag where you're going to end up on this one.
I just want to say, Seth, thank you for reminding me about American Movie. I've seen that and I loved it, and I'd forgotten about it. And I'd forgotten that it even come out in this year, so I'm going to revisit that. I remember watching it, and it was fantastic. Really, really enjoyed it.
It's amazing.
That.
Yeah.
Great movie. A few shout-outs before I go into my list. Trey Parker and Matt Stone. We've not mentioned South Park, the movie.
Yes. Yes.
This South Park, the movie, I watched it again last week because I'd seen it a few times. It's still hilarious. It's still brilliant. And it's a complete spoof of musicals as well. It's like they've just gone on, we're not just going to make a extended TV episode into a movie. And this was in '99. South Park had only been going about 2 or 3 seasons, I think, and they went, let's make a movie that still holds up today. Trey Parker and Matt Stone, it's a different podcast altogether, are comedy geniuses and talk about people that really don't care about who they offend. They are the masters of that. So I wanted to mention those two because I think they're phenomenal. What they've given popular culture with South Park and Team America and a few other things, I think they really deserve a mention. I want to shout out Scorsese for bringing out The Dead, only because I think it was really brave of him to try some different stuff in that film, different musical choices, different editing choices, different camera work. He was experimenting, and although I don't think it completely works, bringing out The Dead has still got enough in it to make you think this is Scorsese on a journey. And I love the fact that as a director he's decided to go that way at that point in his career. I really enjoyed bringing out The Dead. It didn't make my final 5, but I think he did a lot of really good work in that movie. I will say Sam Mendes for American Beauty. It was nearly on my list, but I think, you guys have made some compelling arguments about what that film's probably really about. But I still think Sam Mendes' direction in the film, his choices he makes in terms of where he takes the story, how he frames the shots, how he lets the characters breathe. I genuinely think his direction can't be criticized in this film. I just, like you say, it's probably not aged amazingly, but I think Sam Mendes' work is really good in it. Michael Mann, Insider as well, and Kimberly Peirce for Boys Don't Cry. I will also shout out David Lynch for Straight Story and Shyamalan for The Sixth Sense. They didn't make my final 5, but they were still brilliant movies because this year is amazing. As I said, 6 days ago when we started this podcast, that I think this year is just awash with talent and awash with quality. So this was tricky. There was some really, like you did it earlier, Seth, you listed out the amount of directors on it. Can I just say, though, before I go to my list, I'm not with you guys on Stanley Kubrick, on Eyes Wide Shut. I think making people go through doors 500 times is not good directing. It is self-indulgent, and I don't know if his goal in this was to try and just bring down this Hollywood marriage. I feel like the film was just the product of him trying to ruin a Hollywood marriage, and he succeeded admirably. So if we were going to give out awards for ruining Hollywood couples, Kubrick wins that award. I think the film's really interesting, but I don't think it holds up for me. But you guys watch it a lot, so I'm only on 2 or 3 watches, so maybe I need to give it another 15 to 20 and we'll have another chat. So anyway, I'm going to rank these going up. So here's my 5. In number 5, Spike Jonze for Being John Malkovich. This is an extraordinary film, like in many ways. Like the fact that this was made and recognized in categories is remarkable, because it's the sort of thing they wouldn't normally give credibility to. Was Jones nominated? Was he given any directing? Was he part of the 5?
He was,
yeah. So I think that's what I mean. I have to give the Academy a bit of credit there, because to me this is a brave bit of directing, and it's really out there, and it's strange as well. He was also in Three Kings this year, wasn't he, as an actor? Like, which is like, is that right? Have I got that right? I think he plays like a part, doesn't he, next to Clooney and Wahlberg? I'm sure he's in the movie, isn't he? Have I got that?
Yeah, he's got a brief part.
Yeah. So yeah, it's just a really. I discovered him that year, and I was like, this is really, really crazy. But what he does with this part is just to take you down and kind of get a believable story out of this, and an entertaining one. Is just extraordinary. So I want to give him some credibility. I'm going to give the 3 co-directors of Toy Story 2, John Lasseter, Ash Brannon, and Lee Unkrich, some love. I don't think, again, animated movies get enough love for the direction, for the choices they make. They still have to do the similar things of choosing how to frame a shot. The lighting needs to be right. The story has to be told in the right way. And I think an animated movie, arguably, is harder than a live action movie. And so to bring Toy Story 2 together when it was initially going to be a straight to DVD, video, whatever it was at the time, and then to make what is long considered one of the classic Toy Story movies of all time is incredible. The story's fantastic. There's loads of, I tell you what I love about Toy Story 2 is they riff loads of little Star Wars gags in it. Like Zurg is clearly Darth Vader, and Buzz Lightyear, the sort of second one, is like Luke Skywalker, and they just pepper in so many little moments. There's a Jurassic Park riff when Rex is chasing after the car in the toy shop. You know, there's little shots they choose. That shot is a Spielberg shot. Like, I'm going to do that, and I think Toy Story 2 needs a bit more love, because it probably doesn't get the same amount of love as Toy Story and Toy Story 3, but it's probably the most fun, and I'd argue it's one of the best directed. It really is. It rattles along. There's so much going on in it. I absolutely love it, and I think those guys deserve a bit of love for their direction. I'm then going to go Paul Thomas Anderson for Magnolia. What he's brought together there to get an ensemble cast to work this well, for all of them virtually get their own moment and feel like their characters go on a journey. I know it's a 3-hour movie, but he seems to get every drop of quality and talent out of this movie. It's again a weird film, because there are moments in it that he decides to really play on we watch a film and we go, well, things in films don't happen because it's a movie. But he goes, well, weird things happen in life all the time. Like, why couldn't this happen? And it did happen, apparently. All these frogs like plummeted down from the sky and terrified people. These things do happen, and he wanted to kind of recognize that. And again, I'm glad that the Academy kind of gave Magnolia the love it deserved. It's there's so much going on here: regret, love, pain, death, embarrassment. It's so rewatchable, and this is the one movie I think that really went up a notch. I loved it anyway, and now I think it's one of the best movies around. I think it's Paul Thomas Anderson's. There's one film he's made, I think, that's better than this. And when you get to 2008, Andrew, you can talk about it a bit more. But Magnolia is amazing. My second choice, before I get to my winner, is the Wachowskis for The Matrix. I totally agree with you guys. There is no singular vision been better conceived on a cinema screen than The Matrix. It was a extraordinary piece of work. They have brought to life exactly what they were trying to do. They clearly had an idea of what bullet time was going to be. They clearly had an idea of what they wanted their actors to do in terms of the physicality of the role. You know exactly what they were trying to go for. And what they've achieved is this this moment in cinema history that is unparalleled. And I remember watching it at the cinema, and I remember as soon as the film finished, we're British, right? We don't get animated about stuff, yeah. We anyone shows any emotion and we immediately castigate them for it. I got up out of my seat and started clapping. And I assume the Americans, you guys, you know, I've seen Scream 2. When you go to the cinema, I know you're throwing popcorn everywhere. You guys can't sit still. I know this is true because I've seen it in a movie, so it must be exactly how you watch movies.
It's all of us every time.
Yeah,
yep.
That's it. Like, so, but I actually got out of my seat and started clapping, at which point I was arrested. And so, you know, that we can't show that level of emotion. But no, The Matrix meant so much to me, and I was blown away by it. So the Wachowskis, what they did in this, it's very, they've given it a wash of green as well. I don't know if you guys felt like, you know, the kind of the green code, the whole thing, the whole film looks like they've given it like a green filter as well, and it kind of really works. It's just something about it. Just, yeah, they've done an amazing job. Andrew, you know my choice now for the actual nomination. You don't even need to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. David Fincher for Fight Club. This is my favorite movie of all time. I absolutely love it. Yeah, I know I'm that guy. I'm clearly troublesome. I'm a frat boy that just likes fighting people because that's how I think the world should be. And we don't obviously need women because, you know, you just need to go and fight men and be men and have some brewskis and that's it. And obviously that's not what I think. But I love that David Fincher went for a satire. I love the fact that he made a $60 million movie just to make fun of a certain group of male society. I love the fact that he's kind of just completely gone off on one. It's a directorial masterclass. It's an adapted book as well. Like, he's brought to life a book that when you read, you think to yourself, how would you bring this to life? And he's made some really interesting choices. Like the CGI that he uses in this is really necessary, but in many ways unnecessary. It's kind of, it works for the film, but you think, wow, they must have spent millions just to go through a trash can out of a Starbucks cup just to show that isn't consumerism disgusting, like, and aren't we all terrible at it? Like, just to really drive home a point about what it means to be a modern man in the late 90s and how, you know, you're trying to furnish your place with stuff, but ultimately that a female character can bring this all crashing down because ultimately love can win all. So, you know, he flies you around kitchens. You know, he builds an IKEA apartment up out of nothing. He, like I said, yeah, he drops you down through stories of buildings. He shows sex scenes in like this ridiculous arty way that I've never seen, like the way the camera drags over it. And ultimately, he's created a movie that has got one of the greatest endings of all time, like the biggest sledgehammer of an ending I've ever seen. I was at the cinema watching that. I was on a date. And I got to the end of the movie and I was stunned at what had just happened, and then because I watched it at the end of its cinema run and the transfer from cinema to video took forever, it seemed. I went to my local shop to try and find the movie every week for about 6 months, and eventually it turned up. I got an ex-rental video and watched it again and again and again and again and again, and realised this film was an absolute all-time classic. And he's just created a film that I think needs to be talked about. I'm annoyed that the Academy couldn't seem to understand why this movie was so important, but it kind of made sense. I think if it had got nominated for an Oscar at the time, it wouldn't be cool again. So I'm kind of glad it didn't get nominated, but it deserves the love now, 6 years later.
Well, apologies to Sam Mendes. You're not winning this category. I can tell you that right off the bat. There's just no way the online community is going to side with him when we get to that point in time. I don't know which one of the three of our picks is going to win, but it's definitely not going to be Sam Mendes. Pretty sure of that. All right, so you're going to have three options when we do get to social media in the Best Director category. You can side with both Seth and myself. We have Lana and Lily Wachowski for The Matrix. Damon's got David Fincher for Fight Club. And the Academy has Sam Mendes for American Beauty. All right, gentlemen, you ready to get to Best Picture?
Let's do it.
All right. The actual nominees in 1999 for Best Picture were American Beauty, The Cider House Rules, The Green Mile, The Insider, The Sixth Sense, and as we've already said on the episode, American Beauty won Best Picture. Because the Academy nominated 5 films in 1999, we're going to adhere to those rules, and only 5 spots will be available for us. Damon, you're going to start us off this time. Who are your Best Picture nominees and who you have winning?
This is really easy because I've been that guy that's kind of just gone the directors and their movies afterwards. So, spoiler alert, I'm going to go for Toy Story 2, as I was spoken about earlier. I'm going to go for Being John Malkovich. I'm going to go for Magnolia, The Matrix, and I'm going to be that guy that nominates Fight Club as Best Picture. As for all the reasons I've just said, it's a masterpiece and it deserves to be watched as a satire. It's not some sort of promotion of male, reimagining male testosterone levels and, redefining what it means to be a man. It's a satire for an end of the 90s man, and yeah, that's what I'm going for. So I didn't feel the need to go over my choices all over again. I've kind of just spoken about them in the same way. So Fight Club for me gets my nomination.
I was pretty sure that was the direction you were going to go.
I'm very predictable.
All right, Seth. A little less unpredictable, I think, could be what I would define you as. Let's see who you have for Best Picture and who you got to have winning.
Yeah, so I'm going to take the quick lane as well. I've already mentioned why all of these movies are great. Honorable mentions, Being John Malkovich, Rosetta, and American Movie. And for my 5 nominees, I would go Eyes Wide Shut, The Sixth Sense, The Straight Story. This is probably The Little Swivel. I would nominate Dick, 100% hands down. But I'm 100% going with The Matrix. I think that it crosses all the boxes, aged well, helped usher in. It changed movies for the next 15 years. For better or worse, infinitely rewatchable, incredible cast, fun, serious, philosophical. They put it all in there. And I agree with Damon. The ending of Fight Club is phenomenal. Towers falling down to the Pixies, Where Is My Mind, could only perhaps be topped by Keanu Reeves flying through the air to Rage Against the Machine. But yeah, The Matrix, 100%.
All right. Here's to me the big. I have been dreading this moment since last May because 2 of my favorite films of all time are in the 5. So here are the 5 movies I have for Best Picture in 99. First one up, Eyes Wide Shut. Phenomenal. Love it. Second, Fight Club. Third's going to be Magnolia. Fourth is going to be The Matrix. And my 5th pick is the wild card, Office Space. Comedy, needs some love. Office Space is one of the funniest movies. Yeah. It's so funny. It is so rewatchable. I have a white collar job. I work a 9 to 5. I have lived the office life enough to know how true that movie is every single day. So Office Space is in the 5. All right. The Matrix, Fight Club, the 2 movies that I've been like ping-ponging back and forth. All right. Fight Club is legitimately my 2nd favorite film of all time. Yeah. Only topped by Goodfellas. It like lives with me. But I remember seeing The Matrix in a theater in 1999. I remember it changing my world infinitely forever. I had never seen something like that. And I feel like the world had never seen anything like The Matrix, what the Wachowskis put on film, the way it made you question reality, the way it transformed action, science fiction. I could say so many great things about Fight Club, and I'm glad that it's going to be represented in the final vote with Damon's pick. But for me, The Matrix is the defining film of 1999. I feel like it is sort of its moment in a time capsule of what 1999 represented, and yet it also still holds up incredibly well, regardless if you do or do not like the other 3 subsequent films that have come since. I'm a fan of the films that have come after it, but I think I can still watch The Matrix on its own in a bubble and just be overwhelmed by the movie And like Seth said, it is such a badass moment in the end. Keanu flying away to Rage Against the Machine's Wake Up. Like, it's just, it is cool personified for me. The Matrix is definitely my pick.
Great choices.
Wowie,
All right.
wowie zowie.
Once again, apologies to American Beauty. I don't have a lot of faith in the social media vote when we get to that point.
It's possible.
It's possible. It's possible.
Yeah.
All right. You're going to have 3 options when we get to social media. You got the Academy's pick, American Beauty. You've got Damon's pick, Fight Club. And then Seth and I are together on this one. We both have The Matrix. All right, guys, you ready to get to 3 hours of listener questions? I'm just kidding.
Absolutely.
No. This has been a dilemma that I've been trying to crack for a while with listener questions. They keep adding on every single month. I started it originally a year ago just to get some additional filler because I thought I needed it. That is no longer the case. I no longer need the filler. What I'm going to do from this point on, for anyone listening right now, going forward, if you submit questions during the listener question portion of things, I'm going to do a separate mailbag episode by myself that's going to go up a week after the episode airs. So 1 week after this episode goes up, head over to the podcast channel. You can hear me. I'll run through every single question. I want to give everyone that took the time to submit a question an answer, so I will get to those one by one. So if you want to get to the questions, come to that a week later.
Wow, you're nice. I just pick which ones I want to do.
This we'll see. We'll reassess things in a couple of months, Seth. We'll see.
Sure.
We'll see if I can keep up at that pace. But that's my plan originally for the 36 questions or whatever we have submitted for this episode. All right, that's going to do it for the recording, but this is only the beginning. Our picks have been made. It's ultimately up to you, the fans, to decide what goes into the Almanac as the true winners. I'll be putting up social media polls across 5 social media platforms in the coming days. I need your votes to be cast. Again, the more places you follow the page, the more opportunities you have to vote. Before we sign off, this is going to go up on Friday, April 4th. Damon, Seth, you both have taken so much time out of your day today, plus all of the amount of hours I've asked you to put into things over the last couple of months. I want you to have some time right now to plug all the amazing stuff you're doing. Damon, start with you. You, Alex, Cam over at Neverending Watchlist. You guys are awesome. I love listening to the show. What do you have in the work for the spring?
I can exclusively reveal, and the guys, I'm going to break it to them. What we've been doing this run of shows is we've been kind of doing the deep dives. When we reveal them at the end of the show, we've now gone, here's some clues. But now, because as an exclusive for your show, Andrew, I'm going to show that we're going to do a deep dive in a few months on Fight Club. So,
oh wow,
yeah. So we're going to go into that because I thought this would be nice kind of place to reveal that because and I know, Andrew, you were on the Gmote podcast last year talking Fight Club as well, so I'll be listening back to that, see if I can take any thoughts on how we're going to attack our episode. But yeah, we're going to do a deep dive on Fight Club. We're also going to do a Christopher Nolan ranking, which I know a lot of people are keen to hear about. We did a Tarantino ranking last year that got a lot of love. Yeah, I don't think everyone agreed with what we were coming out with, but that was one of them. And we're doing as well, we're going to do a run of new episodes where me and Alex especially, we really want to kind of get people back into the cinema and enjoying going to their local cinema. So we're going to do a run of episodes where we go to local cinemas, we talk about our experiences, how we found it, the nostalgia of maybe going to cinemas we've always gone to, going to new cinemas, just talking about the experience itself, just to see if that resonates with a lot of people. And loads more stuff coming up as well, really. Just deep dives every month. We'll be doing top 5s, interviews, far away films. We do interview people in a kind of a desert island disc style. Like Andrew, you were like back in September, October, I think you were on. And yeah, they're really great because we get to talk to new people about everything they love and hate about movies. So yeah, we've got a lot of stuff coming up. I will make a really shameless plug, and this is because I need to do this more. I actually wrote a book a while ago, 2 or 3 years ago, and I should promote it more. It will come up backwards on here, but it's called Refracture, and it's, funny enough, it's based on a character that goes around America who's called Ghost, but seems to be turning up in lots of situations that are movie related, and there is a social media angle where the people are starting to find where this person is popping up in America in different guises, in different characters and different experiences. And I just wanted to push it out there. If anyone wants to read it, it's on Amazon Kindle Unlimited. You can get a copy as well if you want to get like a paperback or anything. But I just thought I'd promote that because I don't do it enough, and I'd spent a lot of time writing that book, and it's just nice to put it out there. And I know, Andrew, you've got like 6 billion listeners, so there might be the odd person that actually wants to, you know, pick up that book. But yeah, let me know how you get on with it. But yeah, I just thought I'd plug that. But Andrew, I know before you go to Seth, I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed this journey. I've loved revisiting 1999, and I still think it's one of my favorite years ever. And it's been an honor being on this podcast. I love what you do. I'm always listening. I think it's brilliant to go back and look at the Oscars with this fresh lens of where are we now and where was that year. Now we look back, and I think it's a brilliant idea. And I urge everyone, if this is the first time you're listening to it because you know Seth or you know me, go back and listen to Andrew's episodes. There's some brilliant content to listen to, really good. Hours of it, because you know you get people like me on yabbering on all day. So yeah, apologies as well, Andrew, for tangentially going off on one everywhere.
Well, first off, Damon, I consider you a friend now. It's been a great time getting to know you over the last year, and it's been a wonderful journey. That how we got connected. A friend of ours, Joey R. in the podcast space from Best Picture Cast, was actually the one who introduced me to your podcast, and so that's kind of this great thing about this community we're in is we're always finding new people, or you know, a friend of a friend's recommending a new show, and it's like we're all sort of intertwined. So I've been just incredibly blessed to have you as a friend over the last year. I will absolutely promote your book on all the socials. I will make sure that gets out there. And funnily enough, the longer the episode, for some reason, does the better download numbers, which to me doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So this will clearly be the most downloaded episode of the season because it's definitely the longest one so far.
Fantastic.
Seth, what about you though? You and Michelle over at Movie Friends podcast, you guys crank out just so many episodes. I'm thoroughly impressed by the amount of content you two put out. What do you guys have going on in the spring and the summer coming up?
Yeah. I thought you were joking about not doing the questions, by the way. So I was like, wow, holy cow, we got to do 27 questions. I am ready to go. Yes, we do a weekly show, my friend Michelle and I, called Movie Friends. We pick monthly themes and then go through them. Currently, now this is in April, this episode's coming out, so we would have just finished up Cage March, where we're going through the films of Nicolas Cage. And in April, this is the first time anyone's ever hearing this. Oh my God, who cares? A scoop that no one asks for. Like the second scoop of raisins in Raisin Bran. We like raisins, but we like bran too. We don't need 2 scoops. Anyway, we're doing sports films for the month of April for the first time. We've been in progress for 3 years now and barely touched the sport genre, so we're both excited to be doing that. And then a bunch of bonus episodes under Patreon, new movies coming out. Yeah, this is a long episode, but this is the second recording I'm doing today. I thought I was going to have a third one. Yeah, I basically live in this chair. Talking about movies is like our favorite thing, so if you like talking about movies, be sure to reach out. You can visit our website, moviefriendspodcast.com, where Andrew has written several articles. Thank you very much, Andrew. And you can find us on Twitter and Instagram, Movie Friends Podcast. We were on TikTok for a minute, and then we were like, this sucks, so we stopped doing it. Yeah, I think that's about it. And if we're signing off, thank you very much for having me on. It was very nice to spend the last few hours with Andrew and Damon talking about 1999, one of the best movie years of all time. And I will say, in my very best Michael Caine impersonation of an American, good night, you princes of the Oscars, you kings of podcasting.
Amazing. Love it, Seth. It's been a pleasure getting to know you over the last year plus at this point now. Like you said, I've been fortunate to like be in the little Movie Friends bubble that you've got over there, and the writing has slowed down for me because I've just had a lot of other stuff going, and you've been a busy man yourself as well. I know, and but yeah, it's been a great. You have such a great community. You and Michelle have built this level of trust amongst people who are part of that Movie Friends group, where you two are supportive, you're kind, you're encouraging, you're positive. It's this great energy level that the two of you give off, and I hope you know that it exudes beyond what you're doing in your space, and like the listeners, that rubs off on them and it's sort of passed on. So the karma that you're putting out there in the world is definitely being picked up on, and so I appreciate being one of your many listeners over there on Movie Friends, because it definitely makes my life better getting to listen to you and Michelle banter and have all the great relationship conversations that you do about all your fun stuff. So.
Yeah, I wish that she was on this. She's much funnier than I am. So yeah, if you've been listening, you're like, who is this guy? There's a better counterpart.
Well, now, having said that, you should definitely follow Seth on Twitter, especially because some of your streams of conscience with some of your posts, they feel out of left field.
Yeah.
But I'm always guaranteed to have a good time when I see one of your posts, because I never know what it's going to be.
That's right.
And the next one is going to be completely in the opposite direction of what you've just put out there.
That's right.
But it's always fun. So yeah, it's been a pleasure hanging with the both of you. And look out for the upcoming 5th episode of this season in May, where I'm going to be joined by 2-time guest and author extraordinaire VP Morris, as well as a new guest to the show, Dan Edwards, aka Dan Loves Film on the social media platforms. We're going to be doing our best Boston accent, so be prepared for that. We're going to 2006. That's right, the year that had films such as Little Miss Sunshine, The Prestige, Pan's Labyrinth, Children of Men, Babel, and so many more, but where Martin Scorsese's The Departed claimed the Best Picture at that year's Academy Awards. Again, you can find me on Instagram, Blue Sky, Twitter, Letterboxd, Threads, TikTok, everywhere, Rev Almanac. There's going to be timestamps on this, so you can go back and listen to any portion of it if you want to when you get your vote ready. Again, it was a pleasure having both Seth and Damon on. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. I am Andrew. I can't wait to see you all next time.